Hello, everybody. This is my, what is this, sixth day? No, not even, fifth. I started Saturday, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sixth day. Yes, I figured maybe we could all listen to the Mr. Girl a little bit together. A couple of people tagged me in it. So I'm gonna throw that on.
Right, like if you're telling the truth, right, and like at the end of the day,
And
I don't think they're telling
right.
lies.
The better
right?
ideas.
Just tell me if the
will
sound
flourish.
balance needs to be
The
figured
better
out.
ideas will
I
flourish, right?
won't talk
And then
too
at
much
the end
over
of the
it
day, I think that like
while
the
I'm
truth
working on this design thing as well. But
and like if he's doing,
yeah,
if this thing is on the up and up on his side, it's all good and everything's rainbows and ponies and all that, like cool, great. And then if your video comes out and then it just turns out that everyone's like, whoa, hold on, this is really fucked up. The truth of this is really fucked up. Well, then
I'm
I
gonna
think
talk
that's
to
fine
Mr.
too.
Girl
I think it's, I think it's
this
fine to
Thursday,
be good,
February
right?
3rd, and he wants to talk about Dr. K some more. So it's probably
That's
good
like a
to
really weak position to take. That
watch
it's
this a
fine to
little bit,
be good, but
That's not a weak position
get an
if
idea
you're
of what he's
willing to risk
thinking.
your job over it. It becomes much more compelling. Do you idolize Dr. K or Casey?
Thanks. I got it in grade
um,
8, so
I
like
did,
a
and
long
then
time
we had
ago.
meetings and shit, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
he's just a dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like kind of hard to like after this conversation. I don't think I will have the same perception of you, right?
Right.
Because now you're just a dude. You were just a dude before, but like there's like this unattainability of like,
Right.
oh
But
shit, I
now
will never be able to.
Damn.
we've
Yeah,
talked
no,
and I respond to your DMs and I
yeah,
messed up the time. I make mistakes. I'm
yeah.
yeah.
You're human, right? And like that's what happened with Dr. K. Yeah, just became human. So,
Yeah.
and I think based on the last time,
It's not clear if
I talked to him, which was
Mr. Girl is
like a year
saying
ago at this point,
that
we're on pretty good
Dr. K is
terms.
culpable in the
Yeah,
kind of the
it was
tragedy
like,
that happened
hey,
with Wreckful or
Josh is
what,
cool.
but
Yeah, I
yeah,
hopped into a meeting and he's like, oh shit, it's Josh. Haven't seen you in a while. I was like, oh, hello, Dr. K. Let's talk about clients and shit. And there you go.
you can see how good I
And
am at graphic design.
yeah, and I think I'm okay with at the end of the day people's opinions of me
Kind
sour.
of hard to hear him. Okay. Yeah, it
Yeah,
is a late stream.
but
Here
like
after your
if your
talk with
opinion of
Destiny,
me
that
is
was
gonna
great, by the
sour
way. Hope
because
you
I
stick
talk
around
to
able to
Max
go. Are you
Carson
very familiar with Dr.
and
K?
he's a bad
No, I'm not
person,
familiar with
right?
most of these individuals. I really am new to the Twitch scene,
Then
which is kind of
fuck you.
nice because then you
I
guys
don't
can
know.
get kind of a out of the loop view. I
I
turned
can't
up
talk to
Dr. K,
people.
um,
Yeah.
but Yeah, I've
How
been.
many coaches are
Dr.
there?
K is somebody I've been listening to because people ask me a lot about him, and I haven't watched much of him. And Mr. Girl wanted to talk specifically
I don't
about
know.
like Dr. K and
A lot.
Reckful, so I've been.
I don't know.
He's got like
Like
6
60 or like
video
I would
sessions that are
say
each like 2 hours long.
say
So I've been working my way through it. So
maybe
I've been
more.
trying to get really immersed. I don't want to like make a judgment on anyone before I've really like immersed myself in their world a little bit, and tried to like
Mr. Girl coaching?
understand that person really deeply and
Yeah, let's do
complexly.
Mr. Girl coaching. Just hire
Because
me,
the way
Mr.
people
Girl.
use
Get on
Come
my
work
language
for
and the
me.
choices that
You
they
lose
make
your
often are
job,
very
you come work
reflective
for
of
me.
like deep
Okay.
ideas that they
Advice
have,
and
and so we can be
confessions,
quick to like make an assumption about
24
somebody's
hours a
word
day,
choice,
on
um,
call,
when it's actually more
69
reflective of
cents a
some like
minute.
deeper
Anybody
thing.
could call in. We're
There
there
you
for
go.
you. We're
Maybe
here to
I'll
help.
shrink this.
We're here to help. Yeah.
No, I don't like it. Don't like any of that. I should debate Hassan. I don't know if Hassan debates anymore. Did you watch his stuff with Christian? I think it was Christian Walker. This Mr. Girl stream just got weird. They're just silent. This isn't even me pausing them. They're just sitting there silently. Mr. Girl is staring into the camera. Why? Oh, it's going on for so
I don't
long.
like being quiet.
I shouldn't laugh.
I also appreciate it.
Yeah, it is his silent moment, but it's interesting because I think that
Let's
this is a
pretend it's
coach. So I find it very interesting that he got
But
so
I have to keep
uncomfortable.
saying stuff to make myself feel better.
That's so interesting. I'm very comfortable with silence. I actually don't get too uncomfortable with it. But oh, it's still going. It's really smart of Mr. Girl is a very good entertainer. I don't know if he's intentionally entertaining here specifically, but like say what you want about Mr. Girl, but he's smart. He's very smart. And I don't know precisely like what is going on. I wasn't super closely following their conversation. But they're just sitting there in silence for so long. That's what's going to happen when we talk to Mr. Girl. He's got some awkward pauses. I'm really okay with long pauses, like super, super
You mind
comfortable
if
with
I
it.
ask a question about
But
yeah.
like I'll just kind of wait with it. But it
Video
seems
game
like
reviews?
this peer coach. I
What?
think the guy he's talking to is a
Like,
peer
so I love
coach
the fucking
for
cooking.
Dr.
Like,
K's
I'm gonna be honest, your video game
nonprofit.
reviews are like it's my favorite content.
Um,
Um,
oh.
I think I mentioned
Oh, Mr.
in the
Girl got him to
DMs that
extend the
you
olive
kind of remind
branch.
me like of. It feels like a
Interesting.
bite-sized version of Tim Rogers. I don't know if you know
Yeah,
that
This
guy.
is a very
yeah,
interesting
yeah.
conversation. One thing I have
Yeah,
to
it
say
feels
about
like
Mr. Girl
bite-sized Tim Rogers.
is every
I've
time
met him.
I
You met
watch
him?
him and talk to
Yeah.
him,
Oh,
I haven't
awesome.
talked to him yet, but sorry, when I've watched
Yeah.
him and
What
watched
was
him
that
talk
like?
to different people,
He's
he's
an
very
interesting
interesting.
fella.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
He
And he
said,
has an interesting take
the
on Dr.
funniest
K
thing was
that
he
I
was
think
like,
is like worth actually exploring.
he's like, Vito
So yeah,
introduced us.
Hassan and Destiny made me
And
hate
he was like,
Peterson.
he's
That's
like,
fair.
he's like, this is my buddy Max.
So
He's
you
got
should
a
debate
YouTube channel. He's a
Hassan.
YouTuber,
Yeah, but he
Mr.
doesn't
Girl.
really, but it'd be cool if
And
he
he's
did.
like,
Yeah,
oh,
so you can
he's
all
like,
debate
he's like,
about
how
Jordan
many,
Peterson. Yeah, I'm actually
how
gonna
many
like
subscribers do you
spend a
have?
couple of
And
hours
I
just
was like,
prepping my Jordan Peterson
452.
talking points a little bit more, because I
And he's
think
like,
it's actually like
1,000?
in psychology, on
And I was
Twitch,
like,
everyone's gonna ask me
no.
about him, so I need to kind of be
And he's like,
Yeah.
ready
cool.
to talk about that.
Okay, cool.
Whereas like
I'm
obviously
like,
when I'm like used to schooling and stuff, I like
so
profs
anyway,
don't
like,
make
what's
me
up?
defend and like
Yeah,
Yeah,
talk
we
about Jordan
played,
Peterson.
we
Probably
played Sega Genesis
unsurprising. Blue,
at another guy's house.
very white.
It was fun.
Yeah, that
Turn
sounds
that
like a thing
opacity
someone
down.
would do with that
It's
guy.
very Tim
yeah.
Rogers activity.
Yeah, it is very Tim Rogers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Making it kind of blurry. Hey, here, you
Yeah, his
puppy.
reviews are like 4 hours long.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I like his content.
This is
And
very.
the
Yeah.
reason I like
It
your
seems like
content is 'cause
they've.
you give me like a
Mr. Girl's like giving
bite-sized,
him a break, right? Like he's
you know,
letting him
version of that
turn off of the like
with the
tension of the
video game reviews
conversation.
Is this a question? You said, can I
The-
ask you a
the-
question?
oh yeah, the question is like, are you gonna keep doing video game reviews, man?
Only when I feel like it. I mean, I think that probably part of why they're good is I only do them when I really, really feel like moved to. So,
Yeah.
if it, I don't know. Probably.
Yeah, cause because you never do the
I'm
meme,
so
right? Like
bad at
this
art.
makes you
Look
feel
at
like
this. This is so
you
ugly.
really feel like Spider-Man.
Ah!
It's like
Maybe I should put.
that's boring, right?
Yeah.
This is why like I have to stay away from fucking
There's a game. A guy's making a game about
Maybe
the
put this.
Holocaust,
Oh no.
and I follow him on Twitter, and we've been talking, and he said, "Let me tell his name." What's his name?
I
I
wonder.
think it's Luke.
See, it's tough for this coach, right? He's in this position where he's defending Dr. K when it's actions that he himself hasn't
Luke,
done, so that's a
Luke
little
Bernard
awkward. Did you hear them before
is
starting your stream?
making
I was
LUC
listening to them a little bit.
Bernard
I
is
like
making a
just
game called
started
The Light
it.
and the Darkness, the first video game
Um,
about the Holocaust that will launch on Xbox in 2022.
Seems like they've gotten maybe distracted, so I might turn them down a little
And
bit.
I've asked him when he has a build that is stable,
Yeah, what are your guys' thoughts
demo ready,
on
whenever he's ready to
the
let me
Dr.
play it
K
on
thing?
stream and interview him about it.
Do you
I wanna
guys
start
feel
doing some,
like
video game interviews,
there's any
like
culpability?
anything weird or interesting or different.
Not with Reckful and Dr.
If they
K
want to
in
come
general,
on
but do you
Twitch and
guys?
talk about it,
There's a
I
lot of
wanna
people,
do
right,
that.
who have like ethical concerns about him streaming his stuff.
But yeah.
And there's kind of
Reviews,
this
I
like
think, will be
difficult question that I don't think actually
something
anyone in
really
the field knows how to answer is like, what is therapy? Like, when do you call it therapy?
Yeah.
Because
Also-
before the
also it's hard
internet,
'cause I
we had a
only
clear
ever
answer.
play The
Therapy
Last
was
of Us.
therapy. It's when you
So
come in, you
it's
see a
rare that
counselor,
I
you
even
sit down, you
play
pay
a
them, and you
video
talk
game
one
based
on
on
one.
The Last of Us
But
or
now we're
Sims.
moving into this online space where it's like, if somebody's
Yeah,
doing
I-
it pro
I'll play
bono
some more
online and publicly, is it therapy? Like Dr. Phil, is
I
that
can't get into
therapy?
the latest Halo
Or is it
multiplayer. It
entertainment?
just feels
And is
really
it
weird.
problematic entertainment because you're
Yeah.
capitalizing on mental health and illness? Or
Screwed
is
up
it
my-
good entertainment because it's
played dumb
normalizing
shit, like-
therapy and also normalizing mental health problems and potentially
Oh,
giving
yeah, it's
answers to
not-
people
it's
not
not-
in the
it's not-
stream but
It's not
watching
as
it?
cultured as Siege.
So it's not an
Yeah.
easy thing to answer.
So, but no,
Gosh, this is so bad. Okay, this
actually
tree has to go.
on the last
not
of Us,
doing it.
I agree with your take that this is like the shit's the best.
It's the
Like
best
their multiplayer?
Yeah, it's the best online multiplayer.
Okay,
game ever.
now they're just
Still,
talking about
it
games,
is.
so I'm going to turn
9
them
years,
a fair bit down.
9 years running.
Yeah.
Just because that's probably not what we're here for. This coach is getting fired. Yeah, I'm guessing, but not much confidence. There's certain models of trauma and issues that people have that can be somewhat solved by dialogue. Trees that you could follow. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the Dr. K thing is difficult because just because something is like liability-wise unethical, it doesn't make it
Wrap this up.
immoral, right? And so that's kind of the question that we have to answer in this whole Dr. K dilemma is it's probably technically unethical based on like my understanding of the American Psychiatric. There's some confidentiality issues.
And that's about it.
But
Um,
just because it's unethical, does that mean that it's also immoral?
No, that,
And that's not always obvious, right?
I
Because
appreciate
are you taking a deontological view of saying, regardless of the consequences, is it immoral because it like breaks some principle and rule? Or do you go do a consequential? Like, do you say, well, it might not be good, but say he does a lot of good. Say we can get the stats or something, and we can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt, Dr. K does more good than harm with his shows. Does that justify ethical breaches for the sake, like, because he's sticking his neck out on a limb, and he kind of acknowledges that like he could be at risk of liability issues, but he basically like views that what he's doing is like a greater good, and so is that even noble or like brave of him? You know, like these are questions that aren't.
I have an idea. Let's do
I don't actually know about. I haven't decided. I haven't decided what I think about it. I'd be curious what your guys' thoughts are, because I think it's actually something we need to answer, right? Especially somebody like me who's in the mental health field. I try to do my best to not ever approach. I don't want to be approaching mental health issues in my streams with like purely like I'm a professional, so you should just listen to my opinion. I want to try to present it like, hey, I've got a lot of experience like reading certain words and I understand what like certain things mean. So you guys, here's some data, and this is what I take from it. Like, what do you guys think? Basically, is kind of how I want to be approaching like the topics. But I don't know. Like, is that even unethical to be like, because it's an issue actually I run into all the time. So, for example, before I was licensed as an addictions counselor, I was very comfortable volunteering in like peer counseling roles and support roles, and a lot of conversations that people would call like therapeutic in nature would be pretty similar to conversations I would just have with close friends, right? And nobody would call it therapy because I wasn't a therapist anymore. And now I'm in this difficult thing where, like, say a church approaches me and they're like, hey, can you like run like a small group just talking about like emotions and feelings, right? Just like a simple peer support group. Well, now I'm in this position of being like, before I was licensed, I could just run it. But now that I'm licensed, is there liability issues? Because it's not ethical issues necessarily, right? If I could run it before, the issue is oftentimes liability, and what is insurance and liability isn't the same thing as morality and goodness. And so it's like, have we allowed insurance to actually ruin what therapy used to be like so good at and good for? Maybe I'll stick like a circle back here. That might look good. Let's try like a basic shape. Sorry, I'm also trying to get this design up. Are there confidentiality issues when it's clear to all parties that it's public? See, that's the issue, right? Is it's gray. I absolutely know profs that would argue that there are still confidentiality issues, and that I also have profs that would argue that maybe it isn't. It really depends in part on who you're talking to. So I think that's what's so tricky about Dr. K, is that like, he's pretty aware that he's sticking his neck out on the limb a little bit. Like, he realizes that there could be problems that arise from it. I think he just fundamentally has decided that the problems are worth it. And there's something that I can actually respect about that, because what he's saying is there is a risk to my insurance. I could be in a like defamation case, but it's worth it if I think I can help people for free anyways, right? That seems to be his approach, right? I don't want to assume a negative intention. I try to give people the benefit of the doubt of saying, it seems, if I'm going to believe what you say about yourself at first, and then basically I like test my hypothesis, being like, it seems like they're a pretty honest person, but are they? You know, and then I just like test it. And you can test it by just simply like doing like simple things like watching their behavior and saying like, well, if you care about people, you would assume that they would do these like kind of basic things. Are they doing these like basic things? If you're wondering, I'm just using the top half of this image. When practicing therapist has a client that commits suicide, is there any kind of investigation or anything that determines if there was an issue? Sometimes it depends on the family. So if the family decides to like bring it to, so what you can do is you can bring it to a college, like the regulatory college that the psychologist or therapist is a part of. So for example, I'm part of a college for addiction counselors right now. There's no college for psychometricians. And once I'm a licensed psychologist, I'll be licensed as a psychologist, so I'll have a college that I am a part of, right? Usually you have a national one and in Canada, provincial one that you can kind of be a part of. I apologize, I'm getting up and down. My dog is very bored, so she's just up and down, but my house is cold, so I try to keep the door closed a little bit. At least half, but my door doesn't like to stay open or shut. It wants to be one or the other, but not in between. And so I would say, like, fundamentally, like, I'm not all the way through, but the rule is always you're not responsible for your client's decisions, right? I don't think it's fair to ever say that, like, you are solely responsible for your client dying in such a tragic way, right? I don't know if there's TOS around the key word here. Somebody let me know if there's like a TOS. I don't imagine there is. I'm not nervous of saying it. I just don't want to get like my ass handed to me with TOS like 6 days into trying to stream. In general, there's almost no way you can prove it, right? Because unless like your therapist sits there, looks you in the eye and is like, well, why don't you do it yet? Fucking do it. Do it. Do it, right? And then also maybe like fails to report that their client is considering like suiciding to like the proper authorities, like, okay, well, that would be some pretty clear case negligence. But Reckfel wasn't actually a client, he was kind of a client, right? This is why Dr. K is so gray and murky, is he wasn't really a client, but he kind of was. They definitely had some sort of therapeutic relationship, but is it therapy? Maybe, but does that mean anytime I talk with friends and have a deep, intimate conversation, is it therapy? Obviously it's public, so it's different. Is anyone able to consent truly to a public therapy or therapeutic session? Some would argue yes, because he was an adult, they're both adults, and he was a streamer for a long time, so he kind of knew what the cost of it would be. And then other people would argue no, because they would argue no, because basically they'd be well, with a therapy session, there's no incentive for your client to come in and open up, whereas at least with Reckfel, the incentive in part might have been to basically to get views, right? And so with Reckfel, it's hard to say that was an incentive. It feels like there's pretty much open consent there. Freya, please, come on, that's enough. But so it's possible with the other people that Dr. K talks to, there's some questions around that as well, because if you're a really small time streamer, you might be motivated to come on to Dr. K and open up about vulnerable things that you maybe otherwise wouldn't normally do, because you're motivated to get viewers from such a big platform. I don't think Dr. K was responsible, but if there was a good argument that he contributed, I would want action taken to limit his ability to cause harm. Yeah, I mean, if you could prove it, it's just pretty impossible to prove. I think in most societies we don't talk about mental problems, as they are looked down upon as weaknesses. I think him popularizing communicating our problems is a net positive for now. Yeah, right? And so there's a lot of things when I watch his streams that I'm there's some good in here, right? I can definitely see an argument. I can see arguments for both sides, but I've only watched 2.5 hours now of Dr. K. So I need to definitely do a lot more before I'm going to have a firm opinion on either side. I promise you I will get an opinion. I'm not just going to be the nice limp-wristed moderate who's not going to have a position. I will have a position. I just am not going to firm up my position until I've done more time in Dr. K's stuff, because I want to give an informed opinion, not just a emotional one. I think the studies his fund runs and online lectures trying to educate people are awesome and sorely needed. The coaching seems like a good idea in theory and seems to have worked well so far, but there could be problems in future with liability as the coaches are not held accountable. I see the shows as publicity mostly, but they are mostly to show people that hey, therapy is cool, it can help, and this is how it can be, but I don't know if the liability is worth it. Yeah, I mean, and I think that's where I'm saying one could make an argument that, say, data comes out and it's obvious that Dr. K is doing it aggressively a net good, well, then you basically just have to argue more or less that not only is he doing a net good, but he's also being brave despite insurance companies withholding from the public greater mental health access. I think Dr. K's line about there isn't enough mental health access and we need to do more AOE mental health stuff. I agree with him, actually. I think my thoughts on AOE would differ. I do think his education is super good. Anyone who doesn't like his style of therapy, he's got a very unique style of therapy. It's very psychodynamic-y. So one key that I would throw in there is a lot of people might try to go to therapy being man, I hope it's like Dr. K, and then be sorely disappointed, because I would say most therapists aren't like Dr. K. He's got a very unique kind of self-cultivated style. Actually, watching some of his stuff, I was this is pretty similar to some extent as to my style. I probably talk a little bit less often, but I kind of started my style in REBT, which is a more directive form of thought challenging, and then I also bring in some psychodynamic pieces, because even though I'm an addictions counselor, as we all know, mental health and addiction are this, and so if you're doing addiction counseling, you're inevitably doing mental health counseling, and if you're worried, I was overseen by multiple counseling, master's counselor, and a registered psychologist, so it's not I was just doing counseling in willy-nilly with no control. I think the fact that the coaches don't have, if there isn't kind of a check-in where they're bringing the people that they're supporting into like a team to talk about it and like support each other and bring multiple angles. That concerns me a little bit, because then there's no accountability, and so you really set up a situation where like abuse of authority or actual abuse could like begin to happen because of the power dynamic. Unfortunately, like part of why psychology's gotten so rigid on certain liability rules is because there were too many cases of psychologists being very groomy, like they would groom young people and then sexually abuse them and stuff. So yeah, it's really important. Yeah, good questions. Hello, welcome to anyone who's joined. How does it work technically? Do you get a warning from an association before being at risk of losing a license? It probably is going to differ between different associations. So broadly, so I can't really confirm for sure. Broadly, what I've heard that happens, my understanding from like what I've heard through the grapevine, is typically you're gonna be sent a letter. You have to report for a hearing, and you have to release a bunch of notes. Usually, the college will subpoena a bunch of your notes. So anytime you do like counseling, you're technically supposed to write a bunch of counseling notes, just outlining what happened in the session, what you talked about, major points. You're supposed to submit all of those. Anything else, they'll probably review them, and then if they think there's something warranted here to kind of explore further, or the family brings stuff forward, something like that, they'll kind of further explore. To be honest, there's very few cases that actually end up resulting in somebody getting like permanently dismissed, unless there's like clear cases of abuse. And yeah, it would really depend on what the behavior is, right? If like you're being charged with sexual abuse, they're probably not going to give you much time. They're probably going to bar you from working first, and then your license will be re-administered if you're allowed to. Probably for a smaller infraction where somebody's like, hey, this person like neglected me, I don't think they'd bar you. So I imagine they probably handle it a bit differently based on the severity. That's kind of my understanding. I've gotten a better understanding of myself, ADHD, procrastinating, etc., that I've been able to use in real life and also into therapy. I'm guessing you mean from Dr. K, which is like good. Like I'm not opposed to people getting help. That's why I'm saying like, Freya, I know you like your squeaky voice a little loud. Thanks. I'm very for helping people, and I don't want to say that like insurance is right about like ethics and morals. I think he's gathering some data. Would you normally have a third party do the data gathering? No, unfortunately, usually in psychology, if you're going to do like data gathering for yourself, it's usually in-house. Ideally, like the people analyzing the data shouldn't be the people like administering the treatment. But a lot of times these companies are small enough that everyone kind of has to share hats. So it's pretty common for internal data and statistics to be run, and it's smart of him to run the data, because the fact that he's running it shows that he's aware that there's some liability concerns, and he's going, I know that there are concerns, but I genuinely think I'm doing good, and I'm going to prove it, right? The big thing is if he gets negative findings, obviously that means he should probably shut down. So yeah, I haven't watched too much Dr. K, but I feel like he's mostly gets a pass because he seems pretty good at what he does. I think the yikes stuff comes from his chat trying to diagnose the people that he has on. Yeah, and I've seen some yikesy stuff about like even his own self, of kind of like telling people coming on what is going on. Like there's been some stuff that I'm like, like careful there, buddy. Do be careful. So yeah, that's a valid concern. But at the end of the day, it's like, if he's willing to take that risk to help people, is it bad? It depends on if he's helping more than harming. That's like, in my view, that's the main question I have. Because I think I'm a bit of a consequentialist when it comes to stuff like this. What do people usually have? They've got their Discord on their panels. What's another big panel to have? Probably my TikTok. I never actually talk about the fact that I have a TikTok channel, but that's where I'm like much more successful and better known, actually. So if you want, you can check me out. You would not expect what it is. It's k.turnaround. So there's my TikTok if you ever want to check me out. I actually talk almost exclusively about like feminism and like dating between like cishet men and cishet women, and just issues I see in like kind of modern dating. So very different stuff than I've been doing recently. Which is kind of it's been a really interesting avenue to go into. wide peepo happy doggo. She's very happy. Happy but loud, and I don't think my mic is great. Although I'm very, very, very blessed. I recently had donations so that I could buy a mic because I've been not making very much money in my personal life because of just some weird work stuff. But I recently was donated enough, so I bought a new Yeti mic. It'll be here in like a week, so hopefully I won't be blasting your ears. So I'll try not to like scream or do any too many high-pitched noises while I'm on this mic because I know it kind of like shreds your ears. Should probably just stop doing the one-on-one interviews. He started off by doing them to get viewers with popular streamers, but now he's big enough that he doesn't need to. Yeah, I think if he even just shifts to like a group discussion style, he'd have more safety for liability. This might be a weird question, but I remember Destiny telling Mr. Girl his personality is very similar to Reckful, and ever since then, Mr. Girl seems to hate Dr. K. Interesting. I didn't know that. Do you think Mr. Girl thinks of himself as Reckful ever since that comparison, thus the hatred? You know, I'm talking to him, so I can ask him. That's very interesting. I'm going to write that down if you don't mind. Milton, I hope you don't mind if I steal your question. Is the hate connected to... Because I know Mr. Girl really values Destiny, because Destiny kind of like launched his career, and I feel like Mr. Girl has a desire to have friendship with him as well, which I think is super valid. Interesting. Is the hate connected to Destiny mentioning Mr. Girl's... Yeah, like if he's watching these things, it's possible if he's like really identifying with Reckful, and then he knows where like ultimately Reckful ends up, it might like scare him and frustrate him because like perhaps he feels like he knows what he needs, and he sees like Dr. K not giving that or something like that. That's a really interesting take. I didn't realize that. I didn't connect that at all. I didn't know. I'm still kind of just trying to get versed on this stuff. I gotta get gifted as subbed so I can get these ads off of Mr. Girl. Alright. Let's see what he's talking about now. I'm gonna pause my music just so we can listen to him a bit more.
Give me $5. Twice. These are the messages. Would you be interested in discussing Dr. K either on or off stream with me? I don't necessarily think you're wrong about Dr. K because I'm open-minded to the possibility, but I have found the info he provides.
He's definitely opening a can of worms. My understanding is Dr. K fans are very
I understand if you don't want to add me on Discord, but
passionate Dr. K fans.
You can block me if you would like. I just want to have a discussion about Dr. K. I feel like it might be interesting.
It's actually not a bad idea to give it that blue.
I will not have private discussions with anybody who donates any amount of money. I'm not doing private calls with people. I get a lot of requests for them. I'm saying no to all of them. I get requests for private calls for lots of money. I'm saying no to everything. I don't want to. I don't want to do that.
Interesting. I wonder why.
For a lot of reasons.
A lot of reasons.
I appreciate the donations. Everyone support the streams. $5. Please do not donate money to me, Mr. Girl. I do not want your money.
Private donated calls. He says no to. That's very interesting.
Twisted Peepee. For $2.69. Sorry, I'm broke.
What the fuck?
But I don't know that Dr. K. Didn't know Dr. K has disciples. This
do you have any fun conditioning with Freya? Do you mean like that she's primed to do with because of me, or that I do because of her? Because she has trained me. That dog has trained me very well. Like she can like wiggle her eyebrows, and I know what she wants and give it.
And explaining why you've been misunderstood by the public. Even showed some of your raps.
I'll say as someone who has watched all Mr. Girl's talks with Destiny, Melina, and Booksmarts, and the DGG crew, I don't think this is the case. He didn't even know who Reckful was until the Melina talk where he mentioned his disappointment in Dr. K. Oh, okay, that's good to know. It wasn't until the end Melina mentioned that he reminds him of Reckful. Destiny very briefly mentioned he had a friend who he reminded him of a previous encounter, but I do not believe he named him. Okay, yeah.
Well, thanks, Melina. If that was in fact you.
I started feeding the animals to wait
way
for
I
my
can
phone's alarm before
investigate
bugging us for food instead of just
Okay.
constantly bugging us. Oh, I see what you mean. That's
Well,
a good
thank you,
idea.
Melina.
Yeah,
His
getting
number wasn't used for
your
inspiring, so
your
thank you
dogs to
for
wake you
that.
up. She does
Poor
do that,
Wizard gave me
but
$3.
we feed her at like
Domino's Pizza
11
is
and 8,
self-harm and
so
video games are
ideally I'm
escapism.
up before 11 anyways. But
That's the line that we're drawing between self-harm and escapism. I like Domino's.
so you're saying
I ate a lot of Domino's.
incredulous that he's
It's
had a
Jalen's favorite
dislike
restaurant.
for Dr. K before he knew about the
Domino's
comparison
is my
Melita made
girlfriend's
between him and
favorite
Reckful.
restaurant,
Sounds like that's what
but
you're
I
saying,
still wouldn't
which
make
then
this
would mean
conversation.
that he's not potentially projecting.
I remember loosely Dr. K saying he'd be there for Byron for a year. And
I
then
always
following
stay away
through,
from
so I'm
Twitch
wondering if
drama.
during
That
the
stuff
video
is
research you
horrible.
encountered
Yeah.
anything like that, so I remember vividly. I saw a clip of that
Yes.
in a different video.
Late
but I
stream
think,
tonight? Yes. I was feeling kind of sicky.
what
I think I'm
remember
sick.
from the clip
And I
is
had a
that Dr.
really
K said
bad
he would be there for
migraine
Byron
after
for
my Destiny talk. I was really
2
actually, if you want the
And
vulnerable
then in
side
the
of me,
next
I
stream,
was
he said that he had
I was not very
overpromised.
proud of
And I actually
my
think that was a
conversation with Destiny.
good
Not because I
moment.
like, not like
Um,
not like I'm
I
like
think it's
horrified by it.
bad
Like I
that it
didn't say
happened in
anything
public,
wrong.
and so I still have the
But
overall
for those of you who are like
problems.
newer to my stream, I
But
have a brain injury
therapist
from like 6 or 7 years ago, and when I get really
admitting that you
overtired,
made a mistake
when people get really tired, they usually get
is
like
the
grumpy.
best you can do.
I get like
So
I kind of said like I get dumb.
um,
I get really dumb.
I actually think
And
that
so when I was
was
talking with
Dr.
Destiny,
K's
I've only got
was
one
much
screen
better
right now,
than
so I'm
normal.
using my laptop at the side to like have 2 screens to
It
look
was a
between.
mistake, and it
And
was
I
like
tried
a
to
kind of
connect
bad
my
mistake. But
computer to my laptop, but I don't have the right cord.
I think with the
And I was like reading the
clients,
notes I had prepped, and I like couldn't
like
understand
Byron,
my own like
I
writing,
I
and I
can
was like,
I
oh
assume
no,
that's
like it's one of these
the
days,
guy was asking me to
which
hang
was
out
super frustrating. I was
personally
so
to do streams
disappointed. Like I
together,
feel like I did such a
constantly
bad
pushing these
job explaining my
boundaries.
position
And
around
so the fact
IQ,
that
which is
he
like the
slipped
thing I
through once,
technically should be like
it, I don't
an
have
expert
much
in
experience
because
in
I'm like trained in it. Like I even like look at I even have my IQ book right here, all marked up, ready to go. I had done so much prep work, and I just my brain was like, no.
Melina gave me $1.
I was just like, I think I was like running on such a high from the Prime debates. I felt like really good about them, and when I get really excited, I just like can't sleep. And I just haven't been sleeping. I barely slept before Destiny's, and then I probably should have just like slowed down and been like, chill out. And my brain was bad, and then after Destiny's talk, we went into the city, got groceries, did a couple things, came home. I slept for like literally 15 hours after that because I had like a migraine. With my brain injury, there's this weird thing that happens if my brain gets like way too overtaxed, where I get like concussion symptoms, where like it's not processing fast enough, so I get like kind of blacking vision. I don't know how to describe it other than like it feels like my brain is in slow motion, but I can tell the world is going faster than it can process, and so I feel like really depersonalized from it. It's really weird, really annoying. So it's okay. Destiny was nice. He said he said the chat was okay, but we can talk again in the future, so that was nice of him.
Averin gave me $5.
IQ is super hard to explain. It is hard to explain. Melina had Mr. Girl on, and before their conversation, she sent him some videos. She was in his background. One of them was a Dr. K interviewed with Melina, and he came in hot about Dr. K after watching the video. Okay, so yeah, it seems like he's had his dislike for Dr. K before. That's good to know. Thanks for incredulous. So I'll write that down as well. Seems
I appreciate
his position. I'm just writing this down.
What that person was saying before about like separating the work or the ideas from the person.
Before.
You can like my stuff.
Don't worry about it. I think you did really well anyways. Next time. Yeah, I mean, once we got on to talking about gender stuff, which I've like just practiced and it's more simple, I feel like I did much better. But yeah, and I want to prep more on Jordan Peterson because I actually do want to talk to Destiny about Jordan Peterson, but I need to re-up my knowledge on what he's talking about right now and focus more on his political takes because that was Destiny's main concern, and I honestly don't pay super close attention to his political takes. I also like Dr. K's scientific approach to everything and the disclaimers when talking about anything that has no supporting data, specifically Eastern practices, which I've always found interesting, but a lot of it is hokey. Having him as a filter to that world is awesome, at least for me. Yeah, from what I've seen from Dr. K, I definitely don't mind him. He's definitely like decently empirical. I like that he does his best to separate like his mythological kind of spiritual beliefs from the scientific data. And from even the first talk, I've listened to his first talk with Reckful about depression. I was really happy to hear him talk about
good
separation
for the
between
person who sent the
biological
donation.
depression
If
and
it's like
stress
a kinda
depression.
boring message,
It seems like he
average
views
message,
all
this
forms of
screen gets a
stress
little worse
depression
for
as
everybody
not
else.
depression, but just like my life sucks.
Every
I
time I
probably
thank
differ from him
somebody
a
for
little bit on
subscribing,
that.
which I've only done
But
it
the
once
fact
and
that
I'll
he
never do
was
again.
discerning
The
between
stream
these
gets
two
really
means
good for
he's
that
really
person
on top
and
of
really
like
boring.
modern
Like, okay, yeah, we know
mental
you have
health
to do this. I
data
say
and information,
I
which
don't
is
have
great.
to do it. I don't think we have to do it. I don't think
I
most
think
of
you
the
managed
people
that well.
watching
Got a
don't
good
care
relationship going,
that
considering that
whatever the
complex
hype
arguments
train's
like
got
that may
to.
take
They don't
multiple
care.
talks to clarify. I hardly convince any of my
Um,
friends of any
it's just
argument during any one
boring,
single talk.
repetitive
Yeah, but I think I got
shit
him
that
wedged
I'm
a little bit
saying
more
just to
on
make you
trauma
feel
amnesia,
like
because it is a really weird
you
thing and
had
it's
an effect
absolutely
on me or the
abused.
stream for a
But it
second.
also
I can
definitely legitimately seems to
I can tell
happen.
you I appreciate the donations
So
overall,
yeah, I'm glad that
but
I was
I
able
don't
to.
want to
It
make
seems
the
like I
stream
got him
a
open to the
commercial
idea
for
again,
us.
which it seems like he was
And I think
opposed to it
that
entirely. So that's nice. I appreciate that.
overall,
There's a
two
stream running
things.
behind me. It's Mr.
One,
Girl.
I want to make money. I honestly
I was hoping that he would keep talking about Dr. K, which is why I was listening in, but he's kind of done and now just talking about making money. So I apologize for the noise. I fundamentally disagree with Destiny's gender takes, and probably yours, because I consider gender identity in the modern form to be just personality, and people are just concept creeping gender identity to take over personality. Interesting. So, just so that I understand you, are you saying that you view gender identity, so like people having different gender identities, as just actually a personality type, and rather than just saying like I have a different personality than like other people, they instead are like I have a different gender? Is that kind of what you mean? I feel like that's what you're implying there, but feel free to clarify if that's incorrect while I hop back here. Maybe I should change my TikTok name already. It might be time. I haven't posted a video on TikTok in like a week. They've been waiting for Marriage Part 2 on whether or not marriage is a patriarchy for a long time. I feel very bad. I feel very bad because I've literally gained like 600 followers on TikTok since I've last checked, and I have not been posting enough. You already have spoken about this, but before Redfield died, he was a major proponent of microdosing psilocybin for depression. Yeah, I heard about that. Have you ever seen any evidence of its effectiveness? I think some studies recently got approved here in Canada, right? I'm personally really skeptical. Tell you what, let's look it up together. I've definitely heard a lot about it, but I would be lying if I said like I stay super up on my psilocybin treatment. Let's look for at least since 2015, and then let's do another of oh man, it's like this, right? No, it's like this. I always mess up psilocybin. I want to write it like psychology, but it's not like psychology. I get very locked into my field. Psilocybin, legal in Canada yet? Okay. Let's see what the Wikipedia says. Canada. Illegal, illegal, illegal. Okay. In 2020, 11 end-of-life patients, including a first non-palliative, received an exemption to this to have psilocybin-assisted psychotherapy. In 2020, 16 health professionals received permission to use it. In 2021, exemptions have been granted in therapy treatment for mental health conditions. Canada Health Regulations announced that the government will allow physicians to request access to psychedelics on behalf of their patients with serious life-threatening. Okay, so it seems like it is not legal in Canada, but exemptions can be accessed if you have medical conditions. Basically, if you have a doctor advocating on your behalf. Were you new to the Destiny Unban Reviewer? Unban Reviewer. Am I dumb? I might be dumb. I have no idea what you're saying. Yeah, so it looks like it's not legal in Canada yet. It might be worth checking a little bit more. Legal in Canada 2022. Legal for testing. I wonder if you can test it on it yet, because that was basically dragging its feet. Production, sale, and positions is still illegal. There's increasing interest. Okay, this might be decent. It's the Canadian page. Where are we? Blah, 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 blah. therapeutic uses. At the time, there's no approved therapeutic procedures. This is an ongoing research. So I'm guessing there are certain researchers. There are probably specific, probably government researchers, so like government funded or like actually working with like Alberta Health Services or Ontario Health Services, who have been approved to study these drugs in research specifically, and it seems like you can also use it for some palliative care. How long? I am not a psychologist, just to make that super clear. I am a psychometrist, a licensed addictions counselor, and I am becoming a psychologist if like obviously I like get my schooling done and do well, get all the head pats, complete my EPPP. I'm in the process. But I am a licensed addictions counselor and I am a psychometrician, so it's not like I have no licensure or like expert authority, but in general, I would say if somebody's got a PhD and they say something, you should probably listen, but then if it seems kind of incredulous, get their sources. With me, feel free to just always ask me for sources, because if I'm wrong, I'll just tell you I'm wrong. I don't think it's like, I feel like people on Twitch and everything get like really weird about being wrong about something, but it's like, you're allowed to be wrong. Like, you could have just misheard, you could have misremembered. The main thing is like, if you're wrong, you have to just like own it, and then like, if you're wrong and the point that you're bringing up was like key to like your position on something, you probably need to like roll that back and be like, okay, well, can I still have this position if I was wrong about this? Hey, I don't know if you have any knowledge of this type of stuff or not. So yeah, psilocybin is technically within my wheelhouse because it's a licensed addictions counselor, so I'm definitely like within my professional licensure to talk and educate about it. But to be honest, anyone who's a licensed addiction counselor, you should probably get their sources on it. I didn't even plan to be an addiction counselor. Let's just say that. I've done more than enough hours. I've done like over 2,000 hours in addiction, which is why I was able to get it. But like the requirement to be licensed is not what is required for like a psychologist. I don't know if you have any knowledge on this type of stuff or not, but any tips for helping reading comprehension, mostly due to being very easily distracted. I have a massive interest in philosophy and I'm trying to read more. However, I find it very hard because my mind just wanders off constantly. If it helps too, I've had this problem for pretty much forever, and it's like this for all types of reading. Okay, so it sounds like it's not just when you're reading like fiction, like if you're really invested. I mean, first and foremost, I would always recommend like, have you tried like just audiobooks? I know that they're not as like there's benefits to having a real book, obviously, because you can like underline it and you can engage with it and you can go back to things. But I really enjoyed actually just going to audiobooks for a while. I find that it really helped my capacity to engage with stuff. If you want to read, is it that your reading comprehension is impacted, or is it because you're easily distracted? Because those are actually really different things, right? If you have reading comprehension issues, then you need to grow it in the same way we do in school. If it's actually attentional issues, then we need to be focusing on attentional skills. Like, people are taking personality traits that exist on a bimodal distributions, for example, empathy, saying that this is a feminine trait or whatever, and people are just trying to multiply gendered traits when what we're looking at is just personality traits. They're taking a universal personality trait, gendering them, and creating new titles for gender identity. That's a really interesting take. I guess my question to you would be, how do you kind of, because I want to agree with you, and I think like my proclivity is to agree with you, but I don't know what to do about the fact that like broadly, historically, and pretty universally in our like literature, archetypes of the feminine and masculine constantly emerge across multiple cultures, and obviously what falls into those archetypes is definitely different between cultures, but the fact that these gendered archetypes have certain traits and we tend to identify with it and we can pull a lot of like literature and like metaphysical meaning from it says something to me. It says something like deeply psychologically true about it, even if it's not like literally true. I do think like these gendered archetypes are going to change across cultures and civilizations, but the fact that they like constantly reemerge says something to me, right? And it seems like there is a common pattern in how these archetypes also emerge, which I think is really interesting. I'm definitely not opposed to necessarily what you're saying, but I also think we have to like really acknowledge the fact that like gendered archetypes have been present in like human mythology and literature for a really long time, which means like our humankind has felt like they're deeply true, and we've written stories that utilize them. And why would we feel consistently across time that these are deeply true if there isn't something about it, you know? That's my main challenge, I guess. Challenge I might offer to that. Well, that's funny because I've been going to different doctors, like in the example you, Destiny, talked about, where I've been shopping doctors looking for them to confirm a diagnosis of something I think I have. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I'm not sure what to respond to that other than like you should probably like search for the supports that you think you need, but in general I'm not super for doctor shopping, to be honest. I think that it leads to situations where you like manifest a like disorder that you might not have actually had before because you just like are trying. Sometimes we try to find labels because they validate like suffering and like distress, but it can lead to problems if you like begin to manifest symptoms of that label that you didn't have before, because you're essentially like creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. Okay, 6-month follow-up. That's a good follow-up. So it's being used for treatment resistant, and it's a nature dog. That's pretty good. So treatment resistant was kind of the main. So there's depression and then there's treatment resistant depression, and we don't know what to do with treatment resistant depression for obvious reasons, right? One main form of treatment that we give for treatment resistant depression that's actually decently effective, but it's got a lot of cost, is electroshock therapy. So obviously if you could use something like just psilocybin instead of electroshock therapy, which isn't nearly as like horrific as it like is portrayed in like Hollywood and stuff like that, but you do lose like a couple weeks of memory around it. So it is definitely like still a major and like very invasive form of treatment. I just try to work things out instead of arguing. You can play brainless video games while listening to audiobooks. I'm impressed with you. I don't know if I can. I do not have the like attentional capacity to listen to audiobooks, and I can do chores. I always do like chores and or like hikes and stuff like that with audiobooks. I usually do 1.5 at least. I definitely feel like it's more attention based. It happens with audiobooks too. My mind will just start thinking about other things. Okay, so attentional building is a really it can either be really simple or it can be really obnoxious depending on kind of where you're starting at. So after my brain injury, actually, I went from having the attention of an Adonis to a goldfish. It was really bad. Hi, I heard you talk about BPD yesterday with Destiny. Is it possible to do a DBT solo? Oh, yes, you can do DBT solo. Absolutely. 100%. They're going to do like therapy sessions and training skill sessions, and oftentimes they'll assign you to some sort of group that will be filled with other solos. So absolutely you can do DBT treatment solo. DBT is dialectic behavioral therapy for those of you who hate when people use acronyms, and BPD for those of you who also hate acronyms is borderline personality disorder. So if you have attentional issues, like the main thing that you do, so when I had to rebuild my attention system so I will give you my personal experience with how I rebuilt my attentional system, rather than like describing, and then you can decide if that works for you or not. So what I did is I figured out how long I could focus for, which when I started was 2 minutes. And so I set up a reward system. So you need a little bit of self-control here. So if your impulse control isn't great, it might be difficult. But I was obsessed. Like self-administered therapy. You can definitely learn DBT skills on your own. There's lots of like free YouTube videos and stuff like that go into it. The main thing with having a practitioner is they're going to catch you when you're misunderstanding things, and they're going to be there to like challenge things where maybe you're not fully understanding a concept, or you're not fully like seeing, like they're going to catch your blind spots basically, right? Sometimes we're kind of like, we don't want to acknowledge that like this area is an issue for us. Therapists can be really helpful to point that out, and that's why we don't always love them. So what I did is for attentional, going back to attentional training, I set my clock for 2 minutes at a time, and I would get 1 mini egg every time I completed it for 2 minutes. Another thing I'll actually show you is I made a workbook with my work. So if you go to this website, mentalhelp.adir.ca, this is my actual daytime job. I'm a program director for mental help. If you go down to adult ADHD here, you can watch a super exciting video. It's 20 minutes long. I'd watch it on 1.5 at minimum because I keep getting coached to talk slower, which is annoying because then I go on the internet and Twitch and people encourage me to talk faster because they don't want me to talk so slow. So you can watch this if you'd like. You don't have to. But down here is a free PDF. So click this and you get my workbook that I made. And so the self-monitoring is a really great way of building attention. I actually have an online timer that you can use. You just click that. I guess I should have gone like this. You just click that. It's 47 minutes with 10 intervals that you can do this whole task. So what you do is you set up a bunch of goals that you have for 47 minutes and try to make it reasonable. Like, what can you actually get done in 47 minutes, right? So I put an example here of what I was actually working on when I was making this workbook, right? So it might be read 10 pages, whatever it is, right? So set a bunch of goals, make them measurable goals, though, right? Don't just put goal of session read, because it's hard to know, set a quantity, read number of pages, read for probably not amount of time, do number of pages. That's easier to track. Okay, all you do is you set the self timer. Oof, sorry, it screeches like that. And it's just it's set at super random intervals. So the first interval is 2 minutes, the second one might be 3, and every time the beep goes off, you just answer, were you on task or not? Yes or no. Okay? And if you're anything like me, you're going to be competitive and be like, I want to be on task on time. And so you're going to notice that you get off task, and then you're going to be like, oh no, is the beeper going to go off soon? And then you're going to rush to try to get back on task. And it's basically every time you get off task, you notice you're off task and you pull yourself back on and try to focus again. It's like doing a bicep curl for your attentional system. It's just so rather than getting mad at yourself every time you're off task, just be like, oh, great, I noticed. Get back on task. And it's like another bicep curl. That's a really simple thing you can do. So hopefully that's helpful for you. You can't see the URL. Let me post the URL. That will be easier. Here is the URL that I am using. You just need to go to episodes, go to adult. I'm on adult ADHD, so just scroll down and you'll see this workbook. It's free. You can download it. You can put it on your fridge. You can print it. You can make paper airplanes out of it. You can do whatever your heart tells you to do with it. So it is in chat. Hopefully you got it. Okay. Another really simple thing for attentional training is actually mindfulness breathing. It's just where you breathe, and as you breathe, you try to focus on one body part where you actually feel the sensation of breath. I usually focus on my nose because I live in a very dry environment, so I can feel the air going through my nose really well. And then you're going to notice that your brain immediately starts to wander. And then when you notice your brain wander, be like, awesome, it's wandering. Bring it back to focusing just on my breath. And you can do that for even 30 seconds every day. And that's going to improve your attention as well. Dr. K is very smart. He is incredibly smart. Too bad concepts don't reach people to change that much. Also can't wait for psychology to move past young spirituality. To be honest, young spirituality is not popular in most psychology. It's popular on, it seems social media psychology. There's not a lot of psychologists I know that actually, first of all, young is actually hated in most of psychology, more than Freud sometimes, which is weird because Freud had a lot weirder shit to say than Jung did. Words. See, my attention's bad too. I just forgot what I was saying. I would say almost the most common is kind of that mindfulness, emotion-based therapy. That's what we consider the third wave of therapy, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, where it's really focused on your thought processes and your emotions. Actually, technically, Jung and psychodynamic is considered the first wave of therapy. So it's not so much that we are stuck on it; it's that people who seem to become really popular on social media and stuff like that are tapping into into a really old form. 20-minute ADHD video. I know, isn't that cringe? Not the best. I apologize. Yeah. Is there a computer-based system in place that flags individuals who've interacted with multiple therapists for the same type of mental health issues diagnosis? Maybe that can alert a therapist. So the problem is that in most places in North America, mental health is not public health, it is private health, and so there wouldn't be this collective system because usually private companies don't create like provincial or national records. Maybe in places like Sweden and stuff like that, where they have a much more integrated health system and a lot more like regular national reporting. But that would be a good idea. And there's definitely a system, I believe, like that for medical health practitioners, that they can flag a client. So if a client's going, even if they're going to their doctor for different types of mental health problems, that would get flagged. But if they're going to like private psychiatrists, or not psychiatrists, psychologists, there's no way to track it. Your cam is running ahead of your audio by like a few milliseconds. That's annoying for you guys, hey? I'm still troubleshooting a lot. I'm not totally sure what to do about that. One, on the plus side, I'm getting a Yeti mic and it will be plugged in rather than wireless, which will probably improve that, and it'll make my sound better, so I won't sound like a robot. That worked. Thanks. Reloading the stream works. Thanks for doing all that work to stay and listen. I mean, I feel like kudos to you. I would probably have, I'm a bit of a zoomer, so I probably would have just dipped if I get annoyed. So kudos to anyone who does stick around, and I would never blame anyone for leaving if my like recording and audio and stuff is really trash. My mic is great. You're gonna be so excited to hear my voice with a real mic, because I can assure you, this is not quite what my voice sounds like. It's actually quite, it kind of makes me sound like I'm up in my nose more than I actually am. I've heard I have a great counselor voice, very soothing, but it doesn't quite come across. Although I'm getting sick right now, so hopefully not with the Rona, but maybe. So I'm just particularly sounding rough right now. Do you know the name of your room's paint color? I've been looking for a green like that. I don't, but I could probably actually get you the paint color, like the blending numbers, because we're still painting the house. I gotta think about it. I have a Yeti one. It does wonders. I know. It's so nice. Yeah, the paint coat is on the lid. They're grabbing it for me. Okay, going back to psilocybin while I wait. Let's see. Okay. You guys can read abstracts with me. Yay. Okay, so psychological support, treatment model. So they're doing blood flow, resting state, measured with functional fMRIs before and after treatment with psilocybin for treatment-resistant depression. Quality pre-pro data collected for 16 depressive symptoms. Decreased depressive symptoms were observed in all 19 patients at 1 week post-treatment. Wow. All of them. Interesting. 47% met criteria for response at 5 weeks. Okay, so by 5 weeks... So did they give it to them? Here's now we have to go to the methods. Did they only give it... It seems like 1 week post-treatment, so they only gave them a single dose treatment, I'm guessing? And then 5 weeks later, 47% were still responsive. That's actually like really impressive. Whole brain analysis revealed post-treatment decreases in CBF, including the amygdala. Nice. Yep. Decrease in amygdala. Blood flow is correlated. So like less blood flow to the amygdala means it's firing less often and it needs less, like I was going to say gluten. You can tell it's late. Your brain doesn't use gluten. It's glucose. I got rated by Mr. Girl. Hello, everyone. Mr. Girl, you're so nice to me. Hi, guys. Horses rise. Hey, everyone. Welcome, welcome. You're causing my stream to kind of freak out. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for rating. Hi and bye. That's funny. That's so nice. He's He seems like a nice person. When is the Mr. Girl Talk? February 3rd. At... Oh, if he's in here. Is it 6 p.m. Eastern? Or is it 6 p.m. my time? I'm in Mountain. Hold on. Let me check my Instagram. I think that's where we actually originally sent it. Thursday... 8 p.m. Eastern. So Thursday, February 3rd, 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. I don't know what other time zones you're in, but math is fun. I am working, just in case you guys are wondering, I am working on a schedule. Thank you again for the raid. Very nice. Make sure you say thank you, Mr. Girl. I don't even know how to raid yet, so... should I report myself? All I can do is report myself right now. Share, edit panels. I'm working on the panels. What are we reading? We are reading psilocybin treatments. Very exciting. Mountain time isn't real. It is real. That's very rude. Just because, we ride pigs to work and we don't actually know how to read the alphabet doesn't mean that our time zone isn't real, okay? I'm very offended. Okay, just because Canadian Mountain Standard Time Zone people are broken doesn't mean that we don't love, well, I don't know what I'm saying. Okay, what else? So yeah, this is big right here. 5 weeks later, especially if it's a single dose treatment. I mean, that's very impressive for treatment-resistant depression, because the whole key is that they're treatment-resistant, right? They usually don't respond well, and yet treatment-resistant responded, all of them, at 1 week, and 47% at 1. So now we got to go to the methods. If you're anything like me through school, because you have to read so many articles, I read all the abstract. I read the last line to know what the hypothesis is, except I'm not going to read that right now. Oh, where's their methods section? The results. Oh, that means their methods is probably in their introduction. Rude. Oh, no, method is just way down here. Okay. Let's see. Study was approved, blah, 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 blah. To explore relationships, blah, blah, blah. Pre-treatment relationships between imaging outcomes. Non-responders. Here, I'll maybe post in the chat the article link so you guys can watch it just for your own fun time. This sounds great. I'll ask my doctor for some tomorrow. Alberta Grossed. I did have a talk with Destiny. I wasn't amazing, so if you're like, oh, aren't you that girl who only kind of knows what she's talking about? That's fair, but I promise I sometimes know what I'm talking about. There's the article. I just posted it in there. Ooh, I know brain pictures are really exciting. Even if you don't know what they mean, don't you just feel sciencey to be looking at? You're like, no fucking clue. Could be a monkey brain for all I know, but I feel smart looking at it. I feel like a doctor, you know? Psychedelic pseudoscience. I mean, is it pseudoscience if it's literally an article from Nature? I don't know if we can call it pseudoscience anymore. Okay. So, excessive movement artifacts meant that 3 patients were removed. Okay, that's fine. I still want to know whether or not they gave 1 dose or multiple doses. It sounds like they would have only done 1 dose or 1 treatment, but what does 1 treatment mean? It should be in the methods, but it doesn't seem to be in the methods. Anatomical. Yeah, this is just talking through their mathematical methods. Relationships between imaging outcomes were calculated using Pearson's R, and relationships with longer term changes were calculated by splitting the sample into respondents and non-responders at this time, then performing a one-tailed test of the relevant imaging. We revised a version, okay. So it's not clear. We'll never know. Are those glasses Ray-Bans? They look exactly like mine. They're from Bailey Nelson. If anyone ever wants like a really great glasses site, a site location is Bailey Nelson. So, if you guys are wondering what I'm doing, before you all abandon me immediately, I am reading an article on psilocybin treatment for treatment-resistant depression, which means people who you've tried everything else. You've probably tried SSRIs, you've tried therapy. In this case, basically the alternative is something called electroshock therapy, which you might be like, nobody does that anymore. We actually still do it. It's just not like Hollywood where you like strap them down and you're like, bite this wood, kid, and hold on. It's not like that. We like put them under and you shock their brain. But they do lose a couple weeks worth of memories every time, and usually you need to shock them 6 or 7 times for the effects. It's highly effective, but the problem is that it's highly invasive because they lose lots of memory. So if psilocybin is effective for TRDs, treatment-resistant depressives, this would be really great because then you have a much less aggressive form. If you're curious about like why I'm doing this, somebody just asked me about psilocybin, and I figured rather than like, yes, I'm a psychometrist, I'm a licensed addictions counselor, but I really hate it when like experts come on and they talk and then they just kind of expect you to have to believe them because of like their degrees and like their credentials, which is like definitely valid. Like obviously you don't want to like not listen to experts because you presume that experts should know better, but I'd rather just like actually show you my process of why and how I respond to things, because I'm very big on like being up to date. So the main steps I do when I'm looking for research to like learn and like make a decision about something is I always try to set a range as like new as possible. So I'm looking for more newer data than older, because obviously newer stuff is going to, even in just like the introductions, it'll just walk you through newer discoveries. If you're not familiar with the field, it's super great. The reason why I selected this article specifically is because it is from Nature, which means that it is a very reputable thing. It's got a lot of researchers on it, which means that it is probably funded for by a government, which means they did really solid stuff. What they found is basically pretty impressive. By 1 week after post-treatment, all of the patients, 19, had decreased depression, which is great. Unfortunately, it's only 19. So technically in stats, you don't really want to start even making assumptions about generalization until more than 30. But even 5 weeks later after treatment, 47% still met the criteria for response. So that means 47% were still benefiting to some degree from the psilocybin treatment 5 weeks ago, which is crazy because they're treatment resistant. It's actually really exciting news. So that's kind of what we're going through. I'm just kind of walking you guys through my thought process style. Are you reading for this some sort of student work? No, I'm a nerd. And so I just read research all the time. This is the next one I pulled up. So I figured this one has a 6-month follow-up. So another thing you want to look for in effective treatments is you want to know, does it work day 1? But that could just be placebo because they're taking a pill and they expect it to work. By 6 months, we tend to see placebo effects waning off usually. And so if they're still having effects, either the placebo is so powerful that it's basically its own treatment, or the drug is actually effective. So if you're wondering how I read papers, I'm super lazy. So I read the abstract in full. Kind of, this is a really long abstract. Usually abstracts aren't this long. Here they've got their hypothesis, kind of their goals. You've got their methods. So their number of patients is 20 patients. Remember, if you're doing statistics, ideally you want to have more than 30 so that you can start trying to make generalization claims. You can still do it obviously when you're doing like these control, like really high-end illegal drug trials. It's hard to get a high number of people, and TRD is not super common. It's really rare, and so to like get more than 30 clients in like one hospital, you just might not have them. So that's often why this. Important to note, it's unipolar. So there is bipolar forms of depression where they have both manic highs and big depressive lows. Unipolar depression is you just get the lows. Any progress on ketamine studies? Are they doing ketamine studies? Ketamine is wild, man. Is this about Reckful using psilocybin after the Dr. K stuff? I imagine somebody just asked my thoughts about psilocybin, and I said, you know, I should probably read more research on it. It's been a little while. It's probably been 2 years since I've read research on it. So I should probably read some more before I like tell you my opinion. I'm going to do my best not to just like read you articles that you could read on your own, because the important part is like taking data and then extrapolating a narrative that might be important for people. And that's what I really like to do, is I try to get the data and then I try to extrapolate a narrative that makes the data meaningful and we can like relate it to our own lives. Treatment was good. So marked reductions in symptoms were observed for the first 5 weeks post-treatment Cohen's D. So you want to know a fun trick for all of you budding scientists and nerds who don't actually want to have to remember how to do stats, because probably you should, but sometimes when you're a student, it's a nightmare. Here's a great website. I'm going to post it in my chat again. What's my Achilles heel? My eyebrows are actually like blonde and light, and so my Achilles heel is my eyebrows. I always have to draw them on to look like I have a face. Not a face. I don't know. Light eyebrows. There's like this TikTok trend where people are being like, have you ever noticed that people with light eyebrows look kind? And I'm like, I don't know. I just look like a straight up serial killer when I don't have my eyebrows on, so not sure. Oh, they want to... Their Cohen's D is too big. It's a very big Cohen's D. I mean, a Cohen's D of 2.2 is huge. So I'm not surprised that they got this really... When it's coming to p-values, you want it to be small. So it is less than 0.001, which means it is a very, 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 very significant finding. They were able to like make your confidence interval as narrow as possible, basically meaning we are very confident that these are the effects of the treatment in this group at least. It is too big for me to even put it in interpreting Cohen's D, because yeah, usually you need to have it less than 1. Not because it can't, but because by the time it's 2.2, it's kind of like, why are we even talking about it anymore? You could do like 1, right? And you see a massive difference where you could do 1.2. So let's see how high we can get it. How high will you go? How high will you go? How high will you go? Right, so like, I mean, I'm already at a Cohen's D of 1.8. And we're seeing the probability that if you took psilocybin versus those who didn't, the chance that you're feeling better on depression at not even the right Cohen's D is still 8.98%. I wonder if I can get it to do a 2. I can't. So why won't you do a 2. Oh, it just goes... So they've only done the math for 2. So if you get a 2.2, it's higher than even 92.1%. So it is very likely that the effects that we're seeing is caused by the psilocybin. These are really big effects, actually. So how do I feel about psilocybin? Pretty good. The problem is that... Okay, so now we need to see 6 months post-treatment. Okay, interesting. Results remain positive at 3 and 6 months. Cohen's D of 1.5 at 3 and 1.4. Wow! That's huge! Okay, so again, here, I'll show you. So at 3 months later, after I believe whatever is considered a treatment, again, we're going to have to figure that out. There's a 85.6% chance that if you received psilocybin, you are going to be doing better than the control group that received nothing. At 3 months! That's huge. It's really big. That's bigger than some, like, talk therapies. It's really good progress, actually. Very interesting. We did get a Mr. Girl raid. It was very nice of him. I'm a big fan. I have a budding friendship, hopefully. Blonde eyebrows, gang, especially bad in the summer when hair gets bleached from the sun. Exactly. And they're not super, like, thick and bushy. Overall, I'm just, like, a very low body hair kind of person. So, yeah. Weird. I've told my wife I would hate if she drew on her eyebrows. You think that, but you probably didn't even notice that my eyebrows were drawn on. If you get good at it, it's quite an art. It's basically all like a lot of days I almost always do my eyebrows, but I'll do like nothing else because I'm lazy. But if I don't do eyebrows, I literally look very unwell. What are your thoughts about the p-value debate? What do you think is the p-value debate? I guess I want to clarify what that is. I think ketamine studies have been happening at UBC for its effect on depression and acute pain. Interesting. Yeah, I think in general psychedelics are just being like considered for a lot of things because it seems to be the case that they like interact with like dormant pathways that we don't really know what to do with hallucinogens because we don't really understand what they're doing. It just seems like they do good stuff. Reckful said in a stream in 2020 that he was microdosing psilocybin. Yeah, the problem with like microdosing by yourself is it's really hard to know like the correct amounts. Obviously, like if you have a pharmacist and a team prescribing and running your medications, it's better. Cocaine over psilocybin, that's a stimulant, so it's your choice. You're totally welcome to do that, but yeah. Have you done any reading on negative health effects of psilocybin yet? Is it a safe drug? Let's see. Let's look together. Psilocybin treatment negative effects. Might not find anything. Here's the thing about here's the one issue I have with science is that non-findings rarely get published. So if something isn't effective or like just has neutral effects or like we just don't find anything, you won't hear about it. But I would argue I actually want to know what's not effective as much as I want to know what is effective, right? Might have to go to the old traditional goobs. Negative side effects of psilocybin. Look at you guys. Now I'm going to be so ready to respond to people when they ask me about psilocybin in the future. I'm just going to spew off stuff. Self-reported negative outcomes. It's not great. Because that could just be like it's not nothing, but it could just as easy, like self-reports are like the lowest level of data that I look for usually, just because it's like people can lie, people could just like have placebo, people can just like, sometimes we're just not very aware, right? Like, am I sad or is it just gray outside right now? You know, am I mad at my significant other or am I just grumpy because like my food sucks, I haven't exercised in 3 days and my sleep wasn't great? Like, sometimes you're not able to tell the difference and then you just self-report, I'm mad at my partner, and that's not actually true. But it looks like that might be, see, you can tell how my Google is so biased towards just giving me like WebMD, like it just tries to give me like more like research stuff. Maybe I should go incognito and then all of my porn websites will, I'm just kidding. Incognito won't save things like that. I mean, I'm sure it will. I actually don't know. I don't use it. Okay, I think we're going to have to settle for a self-report for negative effects right now, guys. I'm sorry. Psychedelics decrease talent inhibition in layman's terms. They cause you to notice things that you become habituated to tuning out. Interesting. I don't think people need to understand psilocybin shouldn't be used by an individual to treat depression because it can go south really quick. Yeah, in general, with most medications, I say probably self-medicating is not a great idea because pharmacology and your brain is very complex, and sometimes things have interactions that you wouldn't expect, right? CBD for some people is like a miracle, and for other people it does like really weird shit. Our brains react to different drugs all the time. A class of psilocybin is considered a hallucinogen. If you're asking about the legal class, I think it's class A. We don't classification. Let's see if it comes up. I want to know like what, yeah, the legality it is. Where are you? Schedule 1. You're a Schedule 1 drug. If anyone doesn't know what a Schedule 1 drug is, you can do that too. Drug. Thanks, Google. So Schedule 1 substances are defined as no accepted medical use, which is ironic because we're literally studying it for medical use, but sometimes, you know, what's going on legally and what's going on medically aren't always the same, which is an interesting thing. Based indeed. Twitch is good for your brain. It is now. Right? We're gonna be nerds over here. And if you're like, that's fucking boring, that's fair. Probably I might not be the most entertaining thing, which is super fair. You don't have to watch my shit. But I think it's fun to like answer these questions together. You guys are just getting me better prepped so I can own nerds in debates, which is exciting. I think that this aesthetic music is not non-royalty free, so let's change that. Royalty free music. music. This is not by the guy who I have up on my screen. I apologize. Here, let's try this. Let's see if it's good or not. No. No. Why would you put an intro to a music playlist? That seems very counterintuitive, you know? Makes me not want to give him credit. Just kidding. I mean, it does, because it's kind of annoying, but I'm not going to be a dickhead. This music is made by 1261 Clan. Go check him out if you like this music list. What would be helpful to you guys? Do you guys want me to keep talking to you about like how to read stuff like this? Or what? I've had reoccurring hallucinations, foggy mindedness for months after shrooms. Yeah, I'm pretty prone. This is really loud. Sorry. I am really prone to bad trips. So in general, any hallucinogen, I'm just like, I think I just have like a lot of trauma or something from like very early childhood. So like, the one and only, you guys want to hear a fun story? So the one and only time I used edible weed was a nightmare. So first of all, it was the most potent shit ever, and I'd never used THC products ever before because I grew up like super conservative Christian uber prude, and then I was like, I just busted out into my hoary goodness. Just kidding. Anyways, I was trying this edible. My friend had it homemade for him, homemade cooked in Quebec, with a friend who uses a lot of THC. So it was potent, and of course, as for those of you who make edibles yourselves, you know the problem with making your own edibles is it's hard to get a very even mixture of THC. So yeah, anyways, I was high as a kite for like 3 days. Here's a fun tip about my brain injury, though. Most drugs that affect the brain affect me like way more strongly as well. So of course I did this after my brain injury. I hallucinated the It clown. If anyone's seen the It, I hallucinated every time I like closed my eyes, I could see him walking towards me, but in sepia. Like the whole landscape that he was walking towards me was in sepia, like color scheme, like browns. And like literally for like 3 days, and my boyfriend at the time, he like had this party go to like a day later, and I was like, you can't leave me, like clinging to his arm, and the nice guy like stayed with me, and like missed a party, even though I just like slept for like 3 days straight, but anytime I was awake, I was just like a paranoid motherfucker. So when it comes to being like, would you try shrooms? I'm like, I probably shouldn't. It's probably not gonna make. And I get that like THC and psilocybin are very different. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna do it. That was a real bad time. Like a lot of people just report seeing like mechanical elves and stuff like that. But it's like, what if I just see like nightmares? And then like, what if I develop like a psychotic episode because I'm like so mortified and like traumatized by what I see? So yeah, that's I'm a super like big, probably shouldn't even be telling you guys this. I mean, not that I like expecting you to like sneak over to my house and then slip things into my food, but if you do, wait, I guess I don't know why I'm telling you this. But yeah, it is not a good time for me. Even like one beer is enough to be like hungover the next day. Like I just have like brain fog. So yeah, I'm real sensitive to all sorts of drugs. Even I was taking Vyvanse for my attentional problems as a result of my brain injury, and you can develop like a short-term memory injury from Vyvanse use. It's not super common, and usually you have to be like kind of overusing it. But not for me, no. For me, all I had to do was just use it at the most minimal dosage for like probably 8 months straight, and I was having like major short-term memory issues. So luckily and generously, I stopped using it. I don't know why I said generously. I got distracted by something. I read something on the side of my screen. Luckily, I stopped using it, and my short-term memory has dramatically improved. But of course, my attentional skills have gone through the toilet, so I'm doing a lot of behavioral attentional skills again. Da, da, da. All right, LMAO, I can barely smoke weed without getting horrible anxiety and borderline psychosis, especially since doing shrooms. Yeah, it's just not for everyone. That's kind of what I've heard. or first time I had an edible brownie, I couldn't believe the potency, and it was just half of a half. Yeah, I had like I think I had like that much of this like potent brownie. It was like it was not, and it was slow to hit, so I think I actually had more because we all had a little bit, and we like sat around waiting, and we were like, we're not feeling it. Like it must have just been like slow acting, or like I don't know a ton about like the psychochemistry of like what causes your cooking to get to your brain slower, but so we all had more, and then when it hit, man, it hit. Yeah. So like that's not like my partner who did had the same brownie barely felt anything. He just like had the munchies, and then the rest of them went on like this architecture walk where they just like explored, I don't know, like he just kept walking us through architecture and like pointing at it, and we just wandered around for like hours, like looking at random architecture that my friend's boyfriend pointed out. And the whole time I was just paranoid. I literally was pretty. Oh, sorry, I just came up. I was convinced that like I was gonna die. So, yeah, not a good time. As a psychologist, heard of Aileen Franklin shit on repressed memory murder. See the documentary Showtime, and your link got sniped up by the chat Autobot mod thing. But I did have the greatest feeling ever when I was high. Sorry, is this music way too loud? It feels way too loud. I'm just gonna change my volume mixer. I think that's the best solution at this point. There we go. That feels like a manageable noise level. Just tell me if the music's too loud. Just scream at me. I know I'm kind of slow, but I hear that about edibles. It takes like 30 minutes to kick in. Yeah. Noob mistake. Rookie mistake. What was the brain injury? I was riding a pony. I went over a jump. She decided not to. And then my head and my body kind of snapped on itself like an L, like this. My riding instructor assumed I was dead. I was actually awake. The first thing I did was spit out a mouthful of sand full of horse manure, and then wiggled my toes. And I was like, I can wiggle my toes. And then we did the most unsafe thing ever, because I wasn't technically there it's not like it was illegal, but the barn had like a bunch of insurance stuff, and I was kind of coming in like through the side. It was this girl's like personal horse, so it wasn't a big deal. But she was like worried that she was going to get like into a lot of trouble with her employer. So I was like, it's fine, I can drive home. And then I drove home and like was like, yeah, this happened to my mom. I was still pretty young, and she was like, you need to go to the hospital. Went to the hospital. There's no breaks in my neck or anything, but like between C1 and C2, oh, I wish I had my anatomical skeleton in here, but named Andre. But between C1 and C2, there was like a pretty massive deviation. Every doctor's looked at it as like, wow, it's amazing, you're not dead. And I'm like, yes. It's actually like literally it's a miracle that I'm not dead, let alone a quadriplegic. So I'll take a brain injury over being dead or quadriplegic. So yeah, it was a really big injury. It was like my 6th concussion. So yeah. One more question. My attentional skills can sometimes be a little bit better if I have music or something else playing. Yeah. As I'm trying to do something, but this is actually negatively impacting my attentional skills long term. The major issue, incredulous, with that is if you have to report back on so if you have to recall that information for like school, like if you're in part studying these philosophy books for school, your recall won't be as good without that music there. Because when you store information, it's called state-dependent recall. You don't just store the information, but you store all of the environmental cues. It's why ideally if you're studying for school, you should study in the most similar settings to how you're going to be writing the test, which is why like when I'm in school, especially in person, I try to study in the classroom that I'll be taking the test in with most similar noises. If you can get students with disabilities, you are allowed to bring in headphones, which is what I do sometimes now, and I play white noise on it, and they like have to check that there's no like it's not like reading you your textbook or something. But I play white noise because I study a lot with white noise, because I find that white noise kind of like whatever part of my brain is like constantly being like, let's look for other things to attend to. It seems to like get like mesmerized like a moth towards a flame. Like it's just like mesmerized by the white noise, and it allows me to like focus a little bit better. But obviously I need those headphones to improve recall. It's the same reason why like whatever like you dress in for studying, you should probably dress in for writing your test. It's why when you study, you should ideally be at a desk, sitting down with a pen, with no TV in the background, because you can't play a TV while you're writing a test. So I wouldn't say that all those extra things affects your attentional skills. I would just imagine if you have attentional problems, I imagine the TV, even though it might like feel helpful, I imagine it also distracts you just as often. You neck broke? Not quite. I was really lucky. It should have broken, but it didn't. We can tell. Fair. It's hard to horse sometimes. It is. Hopefully none of you could tell that I was a horse person. TikTok is the worst. It actually has negatively affected my attention span. Yeah, actually, for those of you who don't know, I actually got my start on TikTok. I've got about 15,000 followers on TikTok because I'm fake. I'm just kidding. Where I talk actually more about like gender and dating and relationship stuff and like toxic masculinity. I talk about feminism, stuff like that. So if you're ever interested in that, check me out there. I tried psilocybin and had adverse effects, probably due to my spinal cord injury. Oh no. Heavy, intensive spasms everywhere below lesion levels. Never had issues when I was young doing shrooms prior to my accident. Yeah, that's the main thing with any new like drug, is that like there can just be side effects that happen to like the rare individual that we just don't know about. So I'm kind of always like, do whatever you and your doctor want to do. Proceed with caution. If you've in the history had like not great reactions to hallucinogens, there's a good chance you might not now. But it's possible I might react better because I've done like a lot of like trauma therapy and like worked through a lot of my stuff. So it's possible that I won't see it clowns if I like did mushrooms now. Feminism. Your Mr. Girl chat should be entertaining. Yes. We'll probably agree actually more on feminism than anything. I know he doesn't really like it. I'm not a super big fan actually of feminism anymore either, mostly because of like what pop culturally feminism has become, which is oftentimes it's become just like a veil for misandry, and that makes me really uncomfortable, and I don't like identifying with ideological groups that like encourage hate. Not that I'm like opposed to every idea within feminism. There are definitely some things that I think are valid, but I also think that like there's a lot of things that a lot of like pop feminists focus on as like being like big issues that I think are like literally the least issue, and it's like if you think that that's your problem, you're really privileged, because like there's a lot of other people, like people with like level 1 or what might previously have been called like high functioning autism. Like those individuals have so many more struggles and barriers in life, or like trans individuals. So yeah, I'll be interested. Have you heard about aphantasia? My girlfriends and friend have it, and they both had. I haven't. Let me look this up. How much I'm learning. Who knew if I came on as a streamer I was going to learn so much. My profs are going to be jealous. They're going to be like, you don't even like us anymore, Kyla. You just learn from your Twitch community. And I'll be like, yeah, pseudoscience is the way to go. Just kidding. Aphantasia is a phenomenon in which people are unable to visualize imagery. Oh, interesting. Rough. I mean, some people just think like that all the time, though. Some people just don't think in imagery at all. So, Mr. Girl has a hot anti-makeup take. Is that something you'd fight on? I have no idea. I don't know what his like what specifically he is about like anti-makeup. If he's like it's like false advertising, I would say like yes, but then so is like fashion, so is clothings that like flatter you to some extent, so is dyeing your hair, so is getting stylish haircuts. Like, to what extent do we want to say it's like false advertising? Obviously it's like more than that, but there's a lot you can do with like corsets and push-up bras. I mean, literally I could wear a push-up bra right now and triple my breast size. Not because I actually have triple the breast size, but because of, yeah, obviously. He says it's escapism. Interesting. Yeah, maybe I'll bring it up to him. If we don't fight about Dr. K, because I think he's got a much harsher stance against Dr. K than I do. I'm still undecided about Dr. K. If you're curious, I've got a whole notebook where I just like write down my thoughts on different things. So I've made my way through one of his Recful conversations. So I'm still forming my thoughts on Dr. K. I should put that away in the correct spot so I don't lose it later. Feminism. And then is makeup. I have a feeling that either Mr. Girl and I are going to get along really well. I think we're going to actually get along well. I tend to get along really well with like people who are often like really like just very unique. I find I get along really well with those people because I find them really interesting. And I find him like refreshingly honest, which is like a really big thing for me. I find I don't do as well with people who imply a lot of like what they're getting at, and are also looking for implications, because I broadly don't imply much. I try not to. I've probably like learnt the game a little bit more, but it was actually a huge issue for me in like high school, because I implied like nothing ever, and most girls in high school imply everything. Like when they say, yeah, we should hang out sometime, I just thought that they literally meant we should hang out sometime. So I'd be like trying to plan a day. But what they mean is I don't actually want to hang out with you. I just don't want to be mean, right? Like I just didn't get that shit. I don't like it. I really like just direct, honest people who just like say what they think. In fairness, my father is on the spectrum himself, so that's probably in part because of just what I've grown up with. Like blunt directness, explicitly saying what you're thinking or feeling tends to work better for me. Let's prep. Synesthesia, really interesting. Synesthesia is really interesting. I feel like there's a lot of people who fake having synesthesia on TikTok now, but overall, I just got distracted because I saw the Pepe Frog spitting by Jacobus. Sorry. I haven't seen that emoji yet. Yeah, I think... I don't know what I'm answering. Synesthesia, yeah, it's interesting. I think there's a lot of people who fake, but I think there's a lot of people who are incentivized now to fake a lot of different things. Erect, honest people. Is that what I said? I didn't mean erect, honest people. I mean, I guess that's nice and clear too, I suppose. So, do you agree with Jordan Peterson on his stance on women and makeup and all the things they do are for the sole purpose of attracting the other sex, and anything else is putting misleading neon target on yourself? I don't think anything else. I just think a lot of women aren't honest about the fact that, like, obviously you're wearing makeup for others. Obviously. Because if you never leave your house and no one sees you, most women don't put on makeup, right? They're putting it on for going out into the world. And so people were like, I'm doing it for myself. I'm like, no, you're fucking not. It's very unlikely that you're doing it for yourself, right? Like, I put on eyebrows because I darken and tint my eyebrows because I like it. I think I like the way it looks. But if I was never leaving my house for like an entire day and I knew that and I had no plans to see anyone or stream or do anything, I probably wouldn't put it on, because it's not like... I don't just like look in the mirror all day and be like, wow, I'm just so glad I put on eyebrows. It's just for me. Like, obviously, it's for other people because I'm only putting it on before I leave. And like, I suppose you could argue there are definitely some people who are like, maybe just do it for themselves. They really enjoy it. There's definitely something soothing about makeup. But in general, I find we're too afraid to just be honest of like, yeah, aesthetic is for other people, and that's fine. And it doesn't even make you vain. Like, it's fine if you want to look good for other people. Like, literally, of course you do. Like, an entire lobe of our brain is dedicated to visual, like, processing. Why wouldn't humans want to, like, look aesthetically pleasing as possible in their own position, right? How you look absolutely conveys to other people something about you. And so, like, why wouldn't you try to, like, convey the best foot forward? I don't know. I just feel like, would it be better if like no one was posturing ever? Like maybe, but why would it be better? Like what about that would be better, you know? I'm just not convinced. I guess it's like Jordan Peterson that still gained ground by speaking to conservative right-wing religious people. Religion seems to be replaced by psychology and philosophy. Yeah, I would agree. And there's a very interesting take. Next Dr. K stream you watch, you should do on live stream. React streams like that are super popular. 30-1, you are just like, you're my fucking manager at this point. You're the one who got me on stream tonight because you told me about Mr. Girl talking about it. Everyone, give shoutouts to 30-1. They're just in the comments, but seriously. They're literally the reason I'm on tonight. Because I was like, oh, I should stream, but I feel kind of sicky, so maybe I shouldn't. And I was like, I don't want to put on eyebrows. Eyebrows equals ego. Yeah, I'm so vain because I put on eyebrows. Literal-minded people who prioritize the truth are my favorite. I think you and Mr. Girl will get on. I think so. We've joked around a little bit through DMs. I really enjoy him. I think some of his takes, I think he sometimes intentionally says things in a way to be provocative, but I can appreciate that too. There's a space for it. I don't know. I don't know if it's just like because I have a soft spot for anyone who tends to be like kind of dogpiled or like shunned by like broader society, but I don't know. Or you never know. We could talk and he could fucking hate me. And then I doubt I'd hate him. It takes a lot to make me like dislike someone. And usually it's not going to be because we disagree or you get angry at me. Honestly, the main thing that will make me dislike you is if you're super condescending. Like book smarts. I see he's live right now. Everyone jump in his chat and tell them that this random bitch is shit talking him. I shouldn't say that. Just I've seen some of his stuff and it's really condescending, and I really dislike condescension. I think it's really unhelpful. It's used a lot in my family, so that might in part be part of it. I want Erudite to blow up. Aw, thanks 30 to 1. I want you to blow up. No, but not like that. Ugh, that's gonna get clipped. That's gonna get clipped, and I'm gonna get fucked. Somebody clipped something in my Discord the other day of something where I was arguing against it, but it sounds fucking bad. It's just one of those things I think you have to get used to. Not so erudite. Making makeup looking good is kind of a social construct, don't you think? Broadly, right? Like our beauty standards are, of course, to some extent a social construct. Sorry. But there's like some overlap, but I would say broadly a beauty standard is a social construct, but the reality is it's like just because something is a social construct doesn't mean it's also not like deeply true and like meaningful, right, for our society. So I don't know, like when people try to use like social construct as basically like a dismissal of an entire concept, I'm like, of course it's a social construct, but social constructs are like some of the only things that matter because our brains treat them like actual like reality, like literal fact. That's why it took us so long to even realize that social constructs weren't literal facts, because they feel so deeply true, because social constructs form the schema, which is like, I wonder if I can find a picture. It's like an organization system in your brain that like helps you structure the world and understand how things are related. And so it's like, yeah, it's a social construct, but it's like a deeply true schema for you, and it like helps you understand basically like what is up and what is down. So yeah, I have aphantasia. Never knew what it was called until years ago. Interesting. Did you develop that as a result of a brain injury? Not that you have to tell us, or you just think like that? Because I've heard some people in the chat said that their girlfriend and a friend of theirs developed it due to concussions, and another person, and then I said that also there's just some people who just have aphantasia naturally, just think like that. Clip it and ship it. Yeah, it's fine. The reality is, like, if you're on social media, I don't have clipping enabled. Yeah. Get fucked, losers. I'm just kidding. I don't have a lot enabled because I still don't know what the fuck I'm doing on Twitch. Look it. I've been trying to design just like little Twitch panels so you can just like click it and get to my TikTok. All night is what I've been trying to do, and everyone can tell you how far I've gotten. This looks pretty good, actually. Maybe I should go for more of the simple looks. Like, I was doing like a lot of like random shit in there, but maybe I should go for the nice, clean, simple vibes. But that means I'm going to have to redo the other one. Sometimes if people go too far into the data, he doesn't feel like arguing it. I'm not meaning to shit talk book smarts. I really haven't watched enough of him to actually say. It's just in general, it's for sure like a me thing. In general, if I hear like a hint of condescension from somebody, it gets my back up like right away. Usually because probably of my training as like a counselor, I can like I can always compartmentalize how I feel and put it aside and stay like present in the moment and then deal with the feelings after. But definitely it like causes me to have a negative reaction to somebody pretty much immediately. Um, or like passive aggression. I just don't like it. I find it very mean. And not that being mean is like bad. Like you can obviously be mean to people if you don't like them and stuff, but I just like don't like being mean. Sometimes, I mean, everyone likes being mean sometimes, especially when you're feeling like vindictive, right? It's very like vindicating. But yeah, for me, passive aggression, not a thing. Rubs me wrong. It'll immediately make me slightly dislike you more if you're condescending for like no reason. Like Vosh. Vosh can be incredibly condescending. Like the way he debates when he gets mad and like is getting frustrated with somebody is just to like condescend to them, and it like fucking drives me crazy. Because why are we condescending to people? Doesn't make any sense. Sure, but what I mean is that a social construct is infinitely malleable depending on culture. If one day people decide to be more accepting of their all natural appearance, then that would probably be preferable. Yeah, but I think that's a good thought experiment, but the reality is like psychologically and societally people don't work like that. And I do think to some extent probably some social constructs are inherently biologically informed, even if it's not like genes, but because like evolutionary pressures have caused us to like form these like deep instinctual schematics. I actually think there's like a lot of like instinctual evolutionary pressures on us that cause us to have like deep rooted beliefs that are rooted in nothing more than like a evolutionary instinct. For example, incest, right? Almost everyone is going to agree that it's kind of cringe. Fuck off, everyone has a psych degree plan. Do it. Everyone should get a psych degree. Just kidding. Don't get a psych degree if you don't want one. I'm glad you're not mean. It's the main reason I came over here. Need more like you in this world. Am I mean? I don't think so, actually. Can I be mean? I mean, anyone can be mean. I do my best to, like, keep that away. In general, here's my view, right? As I find a lot of people like feel a lot of emotions and then they kind of put their emotions on their viewers, and some people really like that. 1 second. Sorry, my dog is just screeching because she wants probably the laser. Enough, honey. You're fine. I don't want to laser you right now. No. I'll just pet you. Dr. K has always struck me as condescending, but nobody he talks to seems to be aggravated by his speaking style. Interesting. Incest is awesome, to be honest. I know, I keep doing like half tangents and then stopping and then again creating just very good clippable moments. Vosh is deeply, profoundly uninterested in truth or in actually having a real connection with his interlocutors. He is entirely and openly concerned with the consequences of his content. That is what I have heard about him. I've heard that he is oftentimes not a good faith actor because he won't engage honestly with the people that he disagrees with, because to some extent he's become kind of a talking head of those who like support him financially to some extent, and therefore like won't deviate it from it, which is not something I'm interested in doing myself. Hello there, nice person. Hello there, Bloodshed's Price. Nice person as well. 31. Social constructs can also just be useful. Like money is super, super useful concept that almost single-handedly makes society functional. Right, exactly. Like social constructs, like here's something, I talked about this last stream, but here's a social construct. It's more of like a mythological construct, which you could argue is like similar in like the fact that it's not literally true, but it's deeply true anyways. When I was growing up, and a lot of rural kids will report similar experiences. I actually think Jordan Peterson talks about this because he comes from a similar area I do. But I've heard everyone I've talked to, at least from my area, totally remembers learning this growing up. When I was growing up, I learned. So I take it you're not going to debate Vosh then. Isn't he like banned from a bunch of stuff? I would probably talk to him. The problem is that when people... it's hard to debate with people when it feels like when their animus possessed, because then I usually go into kind of like the counselor hat immediately, where I'm trying to go, I kind of pause from the debate and I go, what's going on with this person? Like, what's their goal? Because it's obviously not to talk to me. Oh, sorry, I muted myself. What do you expect? He majored in sociology. Yeah, I mean, that's another problem with talking to people in sociology is they're really fast and loose with like scientific methodology. So they make a lot of like factual claims and then they give you empirical sources, but then you look and it's like one author doing a theory piece. And it's like, hey, but this isn't empiricism. This is literally hypothesis. There's nothing wrong with it. It's hypothesis generation. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's not a fact. And you can't say it's a fact. It's a guy's thoughts. They're interesting and they're fucking logical, but we haven't tested them. Your intelligence is as attractive as fuck. Thanks, so are my eyebrows. I'll never not talk about my eyebrows. It seems like makeup comes from the extension of the natural desire to look more pretty. Yeah, look more pretty, look more sexually attractive, right? Which obviously, like, I think Jordan Peterson tends to reduce that just to sexuality. But I think that there is more to gain from being attractive than just purely sexuality, right? For example, we are just warmer and nicer to people that we're physically attracted to, even if, not that we're physically attracted to, people that we find physically attractive, that are more good looking, we just assume good things about them. Even if you're like, I wouldn't really like want to pursue them or chase them. I just think that they look good. We just assume good things about them. We just assume they're nicer, they're smarter, they're kinder. Like, pretty privilege is very real, and to say it's all just because of sexual, like, tension and attraction doesn't feel accurate, right? Because I can look at, like, say, like one of my old profs who was like a 60-year-old man. I definitely wasn't attracted to him in any ways, but he just presented well. He was clean. He like dressed well for himself. He like wore tailored suits that like looked good on him. He just like took care of his aesthetic. He just looked good, right? But I wasn't attracted to him in any way at all. Like, I didn't find him attractive. He was just kind of pretty, right? I probably had higher regard for him more naturally because of his like put together aesthetic than for maybe a prof who like wasn't put together. I remember like one prof walked into my like class one time and she had like mustard stains and her hair was all over the place, right? I just regarded her with less respect immediately because of this like bias that we have that isn't just sexual in nature. We just seem to like aesthetic, right? We're a highly visual creature. Damn them eyebrows. Thank you. Work real hard on them. Even babies are more welcoming to attractive people. Yeah, in general, like, we like symmetry in faces for the most part. We like smoother skin. We like signs of health. And it, like, to say it's only sexual attraction, obviously sexual attraction is a large part of it, right? We can't just dismiss the sexual attraction, but I don't think it's all of it. It's also an awareness of their social power as a result of being attractive. Absolutely, right? That's another part, right? It's just the power that comes with it. There are definitely ugly babies. True. Are you going to give us like a Mr. Girl take of being like, look, some babies are hot, okay? And I'm not saying that I think that. I'm just giving a Mr. Girl take, which is funny. Don't men seem to be more visual than women? They definitely seem to care about physical looks more. It's just, again, to what so descriptively, I would say, yeah, men seem to definitely put more emphasis on physical appearance than women, right? If you give women a bunch of men options, and one of them is less attractive but high salaried, and one of them is more attractive but really low salary, there's a decent chance that women are still going to pick like the high salary or the tall man, right? So you've got a much less attractive man, but he's really tall. He's like 6'4", and then you got a really attractive man, but he's like short. He's like 5'6". Most women are going to pick the tall man. And you can't argue that there's any biological reason. Like, there's no obvious biological benefit to being tall in any way, right? It's just because we've socially constructed as women that like 6 foot is like the minimum requirement, which is super dumb. But if you want, you can watch a TikTok about how I talk about how short men have it rough and how I think it's really dumb that like 6 foot is like a minimum requirement for a lot of women, because that's like the most arbitrary thing to me. It's more arbitrary than a lot of things. Peterson would reduce this to dominance hierarchies. Maybe. I don't hate Peterson as much. I don't hate Peterson at all. I actually have a lot of respect for a lot of what he has to say. I think he gets a bad rap and he gets really misconstrued a lot. I think you have to like spend a lot more time in his content than somebody else to really get an appreciation for what he's trying to say because he speaks in such a unique way. And that's one of his biggest weaknesses, is you actually have to engage with his content a lot, I think, to really get inside the head of the man and understand what he's saying. Whereas other speakers are just easier to listen to, and they're better rhetoricians, right? They're just better at saying what they think, and you don't really have to know the person to find how they're saying things palatable. Women say they only want a 6-foot man. I would say women select for it too. I mean, there's a lot of men who are shorter that often get looked over. I mean, look at most like dating shows, right? Like Too Hot to Handle. You've got like men who are much nicer, much more attractive. They have a much better social relationship with them, but they keep picking the tall man who's like boring and mean because he's tall, basically. It's not exclusively, but yeah. Tall, dark, and handsome. There we go. I watched both debates with Jordan P. and Sam Harris. I think I get it. Maybe not. You can try to shift me. That's fair. Both debates with John P. and Sam Harris. I would say that those are not great debates. I would say start by watching like his what's some of his better stuff. I really like when he does like more mythological analysis. Definitely start by like watching his classes and stuff like that. That's a better place to start with Jordan Peterson. I actually didn't. Oh, hello. I'm getting rated. Welcome, everyone. Hi. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thanks, Destiny. Thanks, guys. Hi. Well, if you're wondering what we're talking about, we just started talking about Jordan Peterson, which is ironic that Destiny rated us at this time, but very nice of him. Woo! Look at those numbers go. But before that, we were talking about psilocybin. The best Peterson content on YouTube is the first transliminal interview. It's from before he even blew up. Yeah. Dating shows, LOLs, that's not really what happened in the wild, though. But yes, women do go for taller man preference. They absolutely do, and it's 100% a social construct, like 180% a social construct. So, yeah. Welcome, everyone who came. Thanks for jumping in. Do I like Jordan Peterson? Overall, yes. I have mostly warm regard for him, which I know is, in and of itself, is a hot take on here. Watch my views immediately be like, gone. But yeah, I have a warm spot. Shit, fuck the destiny effect. Yes. Wow, I got rated twice tonight. I am so honored. I'll have to message Mr. Girl and Destiny later to thank them for getting people hopping in here. I super appreciate it. His biblical series on YouTube is so good, but gets hand-waved by atheist teenagers as just religious BS. Yes, I would agree. If you really want a good picture of Jordan Peterson, rather than watching him with Sam Harris, because I agree, he was actually pretty weak with Sam Harris. I didn't love it. You should watch his biblical series. And just so it's clear, he's not like a Christian or anything like that. Okay, maybe you like Jordan Peterson because of a similar background with him. Probably. I fully am willing to give you guys that I might have that like familiarity effect, which like is actually really powerful, right? Did you know that like tons of married couples both have like the same first letter in their name and stuff like that? Like familiarity effect is really, really powerful. If somebody has a similar name to you, a similar sounding name, things like that, you tend to like them. Jordan Peterson is from the same province as me. He's got the same training background. He was actually raised in a similar small town. I think my small town that I was raised in is smaller than his, actually. Maybe I only like Jordan Peterson because he's tall. Actually, in my defense, everyone I've ever dated has been my height, or like slightly shorter, slightly taller. I'm like one of those rare girls who consistently actually date shorter men. I'm 5'7", just in case you're like wondering. So I guess it's not that short. Like there's much shorter men, but I actually have dated multiple men that were slightly shorter than me. So. Actually, the tall men were the ones that just like really didn't work out between. Am I conservative? No, I'm definitely not a conservative. I'm actually like centrist left for sure. With the Overton window, I think some people try to claim the issue with being a centrist broadly, at least for myself, because I'm kind of centrist and progressive. I'm not crazy radical on most things except for education. I think broadly we should abolish the education system and completely rebuild it from the ground up. I think it's basically trash. I think there's tons of there's obviously systemic oppression within the education system, probably even systematic. So that might be probably the spicy thing. Have I ever seen Peterson's political takes? Do I plan to? I do plan to, because Destiny, when I talked to him, brought up a really good point of some like issues. Just I actually like write these things down and plan to read it. The problem is that I have to prepare for a conversation with Stardust that I'm having on Wednesday next week, and then I'm also talking to Mr. Girl, and he wants to talk about Dr. K. So I've been trying to catch up on a lot of Dr. K content, which there's just like hours. How tall is my husband? He is like this much shorter than me. He is like, I think I'm exactly 5'7", so he'd be like 5'6" and like a half or something like that. So yeah, I'm not like other girls. Just kidding. if I ever say that unironically, people will destroy me. They are from Bailey Nelson. It's a store, at least in Canada. I think they're pretty big though. Based. Thank you. Let's get back to some Dr. K. She's married to Haz. No, I'm basically married to T1. He looks a lot like T1, actually. But he always mentions that half-inch. I really want to make a dirty joke there about how he makes up for his half-inch in other places, but I don't know if TOS will like me for that. But it's been made, so I guess can't take that back. You give me hope. Thank you. I think there is hope. I think there are more and more women being like, hey, it's probably pretty arbitrary to just say no to like 70% of the male population because they're not 6 feet. That's probably not working in my favor. Like, duh. Are you the kind of person who loses socks and then combines them with pairs left over randomly? No, I'm the type that if I get socks that are split and they don't have their pair, I throw them out. Or I turn them, when I used to have long hair, I would turn them into scrunchies. Yeah. Because I'm also, like, kind of cheap. So I'll, like, reduce, reuse, recycle. Frogs or dinosaurs? This is an important question for the Destiny community. Well, I feel like I'm going to fail it, but 110% always dinosaurs. I fucking love dinosaurs. I actually, as a child, watched my views literally go to 10. Right as I say that. I was obsessed with dinosaurs to the point that, like, as a child, I played exclusively with horse toys and dinosaur toys together, where, like, the herds of horses and dinosaurs would, like, roam my house together, and they were friends, and then the T-Rex would chase them, and they'd fight it. Yeah, I was really into it. Based, thank you. One thing I can appreciate about you DGGers is everyone gives you guys a bad rap being like toxic. I don't know why. Like, I've heard so many debates with Destiny and different people being like, DGGers are the most toxic people ever. And I've been like, they have been nothing but delightfully wonderful and kind to me, which is super nice. Like, you're dumb is the worst I've gotten. And fair enough. I don't even mind being called dumb. I probably am. I like how I said that. I was giving DGDers a really big compliment, and then the next comment that came up was, you're dumb. But no, I'm just kidding. I find you guys really lovely and really supportive. I've like watched in comment sections where you guys will like call out people for like misgendering people and being like, hey, we don't do that here. I don't know. I don't really get it. Probably just because you're like not willing to just play like in the propaganda machine of like Hasanabi and stuff that like you guys get shit on, which is sucky. It's because you're part of the cult. True. I don't know what that was, but true. Sadly, I don't think most women are like you. Modern, attractive American woman culture is just not so good. Yeah, but here's the thing. I'm really passionate about men's mental health and actually like equipping women with like skills to help them feel safe and actually like navigate like true egalitarian relationships with men, because it's something, not because I'm coming from like this podium, it's something that like I've really personally had to figure out because I genuinely want like an egalitarian, like really equal modern relationship with my partners. And so as a result, I've had to think about shit a lot because there isn't really a good model for women about like how do you be like a modern day woman who like treat, like if you say you want a man to be vulnerable, like what does that actually look like? Like how do you talk to him? How do you engage with him and make space for his emotions and not just like get weird about the fact that he's having them, which is just like not an obvious answer. So Hassan Piker, Hassan B. Do you also stream on YouTube? I don't right now. Right now I just post videos post hoc to YouTube. I'm still a really big noob when it comes to all this technology stuff. I haven't quite figured out everything. I'm kind of working on getting enough income in my own personal life to just like even just buy a mic that doesn't make me sound like a robot. So yeah, that's because people haven't heard of you yet. That's because you like Destiny, but hey, who doesn't? Honestly, like people who don't, in my view, if I hear somebody on Twitch who's like, I really dislike Destiny, or like a couple of other people, I'm immediately like, this person is not to be trusted. Either you haven't spent enough time like listening, or there's something else going on here. Just because, yeah. Link to YouTube? Sure, I can give you guys a link. Here, I'll pull it up on YouTube. Where am I? My channel. Broof. Hello. There is my YouTube channel. I've only got a few videos, as you can see, just a little baby. I'm going to have my conversation with Destiny up soon, which, in fairness to all you GGGers, I'm really sorry. I didn't do great in my conversation with Destiny. But for those of you who are brand new, I have a brain injury. Things were not doing super great for me that day. But he's kind and probably will let me talk. He said he'll let me talk to him again and try again, so that's good. And I'm a huge fan, but his personality is very prickly, and it's pretty understandable for some people not to like him. I think in general, if you're quick to write somebody off just because like they have some prickly edges, then you probably need to work on seeing people complexly. In general, prickly, but this could just be my bias. I also like working with like ODD and Tinkerbell's here. Guys, Tinkerbell is the most beautiful and wonderful human being on the planet, and Tinkerbell, if you ever get a stream, I'm gonna be your number one fan because I'm already your number one fan. Objectively, the most attractive human being I've ever seen. Second only maybe to that like Madison. What's that TikTok girl's name who's like literally a Barbie doll? Madison. What's her name? Madison Beer? Beer. It is Beer. Is this her? Yes. I mean, literally. Thank you. It is Beer. I mean, she's perfect. Like, fucking perfect. But Tinkerbell is a close second, if not first. Because, unlike Madison Beer, Tinkerbell can do all of the aesthetics. Tinkerbell was on Prime's panel last night, yeah? Tinkerbell, were you on Prime's panel last night? Let the crowd know. Tinkerbell's in my Discord sometimes too, so if you ever want to, like I'm just blowing up Tinkerbell's DMs now. I thought the conversation was fine. Are you open about the brain injury? Absolutely. I'm pretty open about most things. I'm pretty comfortable also saying it, like if I'm not comfortable. I didn't like it. When I have not enough sleep, my brain injury definitely acts up. I tend to swap words a lot. So I'll say one word. I won't notice that I've said the incorrect word, but I'll be meaning a different word. Usually you can tell what word I probably meant by the context of the sentence. Basically, it was a riding injury. I was riding a horse over jumps. I jumped. She didn't. I landed on my head. It crunched and snapped like basically in half. At C1 and C2, my riding instructor assumed I was dead. I was able to like wiggle my toes. I got up. I drove myself home because we were not being very smart. I would be a horse girl. I shouldn't have told you this because I really am not a horse girl in like any way. Almost everyone says I'm really surprised to find out you're a horse girl because I totally understand horse girl stereotypes. Deeply understand it. But yeah, I snapped on my neck, went to the hospital. Nothing was broken, but every doctor I've ever seen has told me I was extremely lucky to not be dead or quadriplegic. But it was my like sixth concussion. I've had a lot of concussions, and there's a pretty big dispute in the science right now about whether C1 and C2 should be considered part of the brain. And so injuries there, is it a brain injury or is it a neck injury? Because a lot of my symptoms from my neck mimic concussion symptoms. Yeah, I'm on Discord. You can always pull me in if you want clickbait. I love chatting with you. I definitely will. I'm still figuring out my systems because I would want you to be on, I want like the camera on, and I'm not good at pulling Discord camera up. So maybe I'll troubleshoot that in the next few days so I can actually get you on the chat with me. I think that would be good. And then I wouldn't even have to talk. You can just be on screen and people are like, wow, who is that attractive person? I like how I'm having Madison Beer up while my like greasy face is up on screen. We're going to go back to the side. I'm just kidding. So yeah, that's kind of what happened with the neck injury. I'm really lucky to not be quadriplegic. And as a result, it's just caused me to have like attentional issues, some word swapping. If I get really sleepy, I just like get dumb, basically. So yeah. My ex is a horse girl. Was she like the horse girl with like two short, tiny little dogs? And was she like a barrel racer? Because there's like levels of horse girl, right? You've got like hunters and barrel racers. They're usually like really crazy, and you should avoid them. Erudite learning how to milk content. Isn't Madison Beer a League of Legends singer? Is she? Because that would be amazing. Horse girl and dinosaur girl, though, so it cancels out. True. And for sure, if I had been introduced to anime young enough, I would have been a big anime wolf girl. Princess Mononoke is like one of my faves. She is, I do music for. She was in KDA. Interesting. That's cool that you do music for it, too. That makes you famous in and of itself. My ex is a material girl. So you don't do that anymore, right? Horse riding, you mean? I just recently picked it back up. Just doing like some light dressage work and stuff, just because I do really enjoy riding. I really enjoy nature and stuff like that. Hello. But yeah, I haven't done it for a while. I look like a horse girl. Do I? I feel like I don't. I feel like that's post hoc bias coming in here. Brain to neck controversy you just mentioned. Yep, this is the problem our society is facing right now. Moving to being able to understand function where it is on a spectrum. Part of the brain, part of brainstem spectrum is just an example. Yeah. I mean, I think when it comes to anything in neuroscience, I think once we have like significant, I think we're at the cusp of some major breakthrough when it comes to neuroscience. Just like how epigenetics like changed the face of biology and genetics and research in that field, I actually think we're on the cusp of a neuroscience breakthrough that's going to change everything. Because the reality is we just don't get the brain that much. Do you scrunch or fold the toilet paper when wiping? That is a question I don't answer because I don't really like toilet conversation. Neurotrauma is crazy shit. It is crazy shit. It really fucked me up for a long time. Like for the first couple of months, like I could barely read numbers. Like I would see a 9, but my brain would process it as a 4 or something like that. And it really fucked me up because I was in like cognitive psychology was one of my classes at the time, and it was just like really messing me up. I like couldn't get my head on straight. MRI is a huge benefit. Is there something happening now that makes you think neuroscience's breakthrough is close? Mostly because it feels like we've stagnated. Like we keep running up into this issue, which is like there's so many properties to the brain that we call like emergent properties, where they kind of happen everywhere. We don't really know what's causing it, like consciousness, like empathy, and we don't get it. Like we have a really hard time going from the neuron, like we understand that pretty well, and then jumping to even just like the layers of like one section of the cortex and jumping to like how that creates this emergent effect. And so it feels like we're kind of like hitting this wall of information, and we have to get past it before we can do like better diagnosis and better understanding of like neurological correlates to like human functioning and stuff. And I think when we do that, it's going to like revolutionize the field. And I really hope I'm alive when it happens. When I say it's close, I mean like academic close, so probably still like 10 to 15 years. But it'd be great if it was sooner. I mean, yeah, I got a brain injury, so who knows how long I have, you know? Not because I'm like planning to die, but because you are more likely to re-injure yourself. Once you have a TBI, you're more likely to get concussions in the future. So I have to be like a lot more careful with my brain. When was my last MRI? 2 years ago, I think. That's when I was having like some numbness in my face and stuff. The problem with my brain injury and a lot of brain injuries that are like more concussion related is that they're so small that they're not going to show up on like an fMRI or an MRI because you're not getting small enough detail or resolution to see stuff like that. I'm actually going to a neurologist tomorrow for an EEG. Ooh, EEGs are fun. We used to always play when I was in my undergrad. We had if anyone has ever heard, there's like this machine. I don't know if you really need the acronym, but it's basically like this magnetic machine that will like zap your brain from the outside by like releasing like electro pulses or magnetic pulses, and it either like increases firing in that area or decreases it. So you can like turn it on to like, it's really cool to like do it over like your motor system, like of speech or something, because you can like have them count and then start firing the TMJ, and then they'll just like stutter and they can't speak for a little bit. It's really interesting. Girl, we need to get you on FFZ and BTTV emotes. This chat is dry. Okay, okay. Tools. Help. View. No, this isn't it. That's probably in settings. See, I'm using OBS. I hear a lot of people like encourage stream OBS, but I want to be like true to the OGs, you know? Copium will be the first emote added, probably. If only, I would love a breakthrough. Gluten messes my brain up substantially, and I'm pretty sure it affected me long term too. Yeah, there's so many things where it's just like, scientists will be like, well, that shouldn't do that. And then they're like, yeah, but it does. Like, I have this like weird like mystery chronic illness that I've gone to like the highest levels of diagnosis, where basically like I was seeing like a very specialized genetic internal disorders who's like, you probably have something that's causing symptoms and we haven't named it yet. So try again in 5 years and maybe we'll have figured it out. It's like, cool, Jan. So, have you ever seen the Minefield series on YouTube from Vsauce? No, I have not. I like Vsauce. I used to watch them a lot. Do you think it would be a good thing if we could literally read, that we could read somebody's mind by reading the brain? If we fully understand the brain, would you be afraid of misuse by tyrants? Oh, for sure. I mean, that's the problem with any technological advance, is that there's always going to be risk that somebody abuses it by, whether they're tyrants or just like how IQ, I would argue, gets abused now. Like any technological advancement is always at risk of being abused. It's why like people are nervous with CRISPR and like making like basically like designer babies and stuff like that. There's always concerns to be had, but I think the problem is that like as progress continues, it won't be stopped. We try to like slow it and have like as much ethical forethought as we can. But I think we're a really long way from the place where like we're going to be able to actually like read minds by like some form of like fancy brain scan. I think that's going to be a long ways off. On Destiny stream, mentioned that assertiveness is a big point for you, that is also extended to men wanting to approach somebody in public. I asked this as someone who's recently felt that I've had to pull back from approaching women because I felt like it's creepy to even say hello. That's a really good question. You know, you hit 1K followers. I didn't. Thanks, everyone. I'm so excited. This is crazy. I've only been streaming for like 6 days, and I don't know what to do with all this. I'm just very blessed by you guys. No. Nope. I said, oh, hey, something. I don't know. Yeah. Designer babies terrifies me. My sister has a baby, and he wears baby designer clothes. When it comes to like men approaching women, I think you guys are in a tricky situation. When I talk about assertiveness training, it's more for basically like in general, I would tailor it for women because women tend to be more agreeable and we're kind of socio-culturally taught to be more like passive and submissive. But it's basically for anyone. I actually think assertiveness training is actually really important for people who are like too aggressive as well. And they like assert things that they want in like a really like kind of aggressive or like even like tyrannical way, right? And so I think assertiveness training is really good for women to like, I'm very pro women approaching men. I think it's really important to normalize women approaching men. I think it like solves a lot of issues that people bring up, as far as like, for example, a lot of women are like uncomfortable being approached in certain settings, right? If it was culturally more the case that just women only approached and men didn't, that problem would be dramatically reduced, right? Because then if a man is approaching you, it would be strange, and people in public would be like, oh, that's weird, right? I think women getting assertiveness training is going to be really good for rejection as well, because in general, women are the rejectors, men are the rejectees. I just want to say that I love your talk with Destiny, and now I'm stating the obvious, but you're really smart, beautiful, and pleasant to listen to. Thank you. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. We're excited to have you guys here. I've got a Discord and everything, so feel free to pop in there and say hi sometimes. I'm not in the channel right now because it's hard to talk with people on stream. You're always worried about TOS, but yeah, I think there needs to be kind of a better, more nuanced conversation about like how do you keep women safe? Because I think like sexual assault, domestic violence, violence against women is obviously a serious concern. Problem is that actually men are most often the victim of any form of violence. The issue is that like it's men perpetrating violence against both groups, right? In general, though, assertiveness training teaches people how to say no in a way that de-escalates situations, right? And a lot of times, like on TikTok, where I've been making more of these conversations, a lot of women respond by being like, I'm not going to be polite to save his fifis. And it's just like, okay, it's not necessarily like, obviously, a benefit from this is that you're going to save his feelings, which let's not dismiss people's feelings. Getting rejected over and over fucking sucks. Okay, so let's not like just like be like his fifis. But obviously there's a big gap between somebody's feelings and somebody's physical safety, right? I acknowledge that as well. But proper escalation like de-escalation techniques is assertive, right? I call it like palatable assertiveness, right? There's a way to say no to somebody that actually calms the individual and keeps the woman, in this case, I'm assuming it's the woman being approached in this situation, right? Keeps them safer, which I think is just better, right? And on the plus side, it also prevents a lot of people who are like maybe just like normal dudes who just like don't know much about like social cues. They're like just kind of practicing like talking to women. It keeps those men from like getting really harshly rejected, because a lot of men get like really 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 savagely rejected. And yeah, there's this piece of like mean like, well, men like shouldn't get like so butthurt over being rejected, but it's like, yeah, but like women could also figure out how to like say no in a way where they're very clear about what they want, but they also aren't rude, right? Because there's like a big difference between being like, oh, like I appreciate that, but I'm not interested, right? Versus being like, no. And then a lot of the women who like get mad at me when I like get into talking to them about being like, well, what does rejection look like for you? Like, how do you handle it? A lot of times it's like really vague, and they'll be like, oh, like I'm not interested right now, like maybe later, sorry, stuff like that, right? And they are doing this, sometimes it's like a safety thing, if they're like nervous of how the person's going to react, so they're trying to like not make them too mad, but it's not clear. And then there's other women who tell men that you should pursue them harder, and they're like, you just didn't try hard enough, that's why I'm not interested in you. And it's just like, okay, cool. Cool, Janet. Problem is that you can't tell you can't have some women telling men pursue harder, even if I say no, like just keep trying and pestering, and then other women saying that's kind of rapey, it's a little predatory, please stop, right? Like it's so fucking confusing. So yeah, I just want to like actually like, I know empower women is like such a cringe phrase nowadays, but I genuinely want to empower women to like be palatably assertive, to like voice what their needs and wants are, because I think like as women are more comfortable like occupying their own space, they don't feel a need to like lash out anxiously as much. And I'm big on empowering men of like, how do you charismatically talk to women? In general, I'll probably have like my partner talk about it with you guys more than me, because probably a cis-het woman can't tell cis-het men how to pursue women. That's usually not the best advice. I find that women who have never pursued a woman before don't know what that actually looks like, and so I don't think I'm actually equipped to give you guys the best advice. Are women more emotional than men on average? It seems to be the case, yeah. They tend to be a little bit higher in neuroticism, and there's some evidence that potentially there's more thickened white matter pathways between kind of the cortex and the amygdala. But that's a really simplified answer. I'll leave it at the simplified. Somebody can push back at me later. They'll clip this, and then I can have a debate with them, and I can flesh it out later if you have more questions about that. Have you played the new Quest VR? I don't have VR. I know nothing about VR at all. I am terribly sorry to disappoint. I think young boys and men need more male role models who teach them how to properly handle being rejected and how to like talk with women, right? Like a lot of the role models for men is like super cringy alpha male types. Or like pickup artists who often like don't have like the best intentions going on and really do like hurt a lot of women and like screw women over by like leading them on and kind of dumping them after sex, right? And so it's like we need men that are like an alternative of being like, hey, let's be emotional, like it's fine for men to have emotions and all these things, but also like here's how to be charismatic and like confident and comfortable with women. I just wish we had more complex conversations about like dating and relationships. And like this, I'm even just talking about cis het people. Like this doesn't bring into any of like the LGBTQ plus or gender fluid people or any of the other like dynamics that are going on in relationships when like gender and orientation change, which adds extra layers of complexity. Like it's like our culture can't even talk about cis het men and cis het women fucking dating. How the fuck are we gonna like navigate the rest, you know? Like fuck. Actually, sometimes I feel like LGBTQ people have figured it out better than us sometimes. They're just like direct, I think, a lot of time. This also becomes an issue in sexual situations with consent. Yes! Like men being expected to make the first move and being the aggressor and often getting mixed messages. Yes, right? It's like implied consent is the least sexy thing. And look, I don't want to be the one to just remove romanticism. I totally get that there's something exciting about like the implied consent and like the tension between like do they want to or do they not. But in a culture where like sexuality and sex is so much more common, our old systems of consent and how sexuality works doesn't work anymore, because implied consent is a lot easier with somebody that you know pretty well, that you've maybe been like courting, if we're going like way back, for like 3 to 4 months. Like you're going to know their body language more. You're going to be able to read them. You know their personalities, their quirks, their interests. You know whether they like surprises or not, right? So you're going to be able to read that implied consent better than date one, where you've only had like 2 hours to talk. And who the fuck knows if they even told you anything true about themselves? Feels weird, man. Zerka is my leader. That's fair. I mean, like, go to whoever you want. The reality with, like, I don't know if Zerka's like an alpha male type or a pickup artist type. There's something about it that, like, does appeal to women, which I think is, like, an interesting case analysis that maybe we can do sometime. About, like, what's going on that does seem to be, like, attracting women. Because women seem to, like, be dating those men, but then being deeply unsatisfied with the relationships with them. Particularly because they get really hurt and burned, and it causes like a lot of bitterness in those women towards men, which I think is understandable. We can't talk about everything at once, but there are really healthy ways to discuss things, i.e. true dialogue, for example. Start with meta levels and move downwards, right? And the problem is that like we don't even teach our teens to do this, and so we like have extremely unnuanced conversations around like something as important as consent, and then you like throw a bunch of horny teens at each other, and they are like not even comfortable like saying the word like sex, let alone like fucking asking, do you want to have sex, right? So we just like, we need to just have better conversations about this. And I think it's like a big issue that like more like Protestant church world has caused in our culture, like as like sexual liberties like really started in the 60s, while there's like lots of good things that came from it, right? Like birth control and like sexual freedom and like destigmatizing like women having sex and stuff like that. There's a lot of issues that also like unexpectedly arose from it because we didn't entirely erode like our traditional views of what actual courtship looks like, right? And so like we didn't know how to talk about this stuff. Zerka's that guy who saw the Sigma males meme and thought they were being serious and made it his only personality. Holy shit. Mr. Girl hates expressed consent. Yeah, I think that like the reality is like there are some people who actually really like the tension and excitement of an implied consent situation, right? I like expressed consent, but like I'm an individual with an SA history. So like for me, it's safer. I prefer it and I find it decently attractive because it makes me feel really safe with that individual. And so like I think we have to like so many people like really want to shit on Mr. Girl for his take, right? And I'm like, okay, but here's the thing, right? Is like he's got a really honest take of like there's lots of people who prefer implied consent. We just have to talk about the fact that there are risks that are associated with implied consent, which is that you could think that they're implying yes and you're fucking wrong. And now you're again in like kind of predatory, potentially SA like space, and that's not good. It's very dangerous, right? For both like I don't want to say just both men and women because there's obviously lots of genders involved with this, but for like all people in all relationships, right? Which is why like assertiveness training, I think like if you're an individual who's pursued more often potentially because you're more like passive, assertiveness training is really good because it teaches you like how to properly and appropriately like voice what your needs and wants are, and you get to practice doing it in a way that you get comfortable with. I can't tell what you're saying. Things based on research and when it's based on experience and based on research. I apologize. I will do better to explain that. Pretty much, I'll give you a disclaimer. There is almost no research on dating and relationships. Almost none. Gottman is like the best we have right now, and he studied long-term married couples, cis-het couples, right? So it's like, who the fuck does that apply to? Like, some people. Somebody, yeah, he might have a scat fetish. I mean, that's fine. People are allowed to have like kinks and fetishes. I don't really have an issue with that. There is a way to specifically ask for consent in a sexy, playful, masculine way. I get it. Yeah. Is she saying essay or SA? Sexual assault. Yeah, I'm saying sexual assault like SA. I would assume if you're at a sex party, it's implied from the start. Yeah, I mean, if you're at a sex party and then you're like, whoa, I'm not consenting to this, I'm going to kind of be like, why are you here? It's the same reason why I actually get really annoyed with trigger warnings in, like, I remember I took a fucking class on, like, World War II. Right? And then at the beginning of every class, they'd be like, trigger warning, we're going to talk about, like, people dying. And I'm like, no fucking shit, it's a class on World War II. You don't need to trigger warning me on something I'm, like, obviously walking into. Like, I fucking took the class. Why would I be here if I'm like, hey, I want to learn about World War II, but don't you dare tell me about people dying. And it's like, okay, well then there's only politics to talk about, and that's not that interesting. Drives me crazy. Not that I'm opposed to all forms of trigger warnings, right? If you're like, hey guys, we're going to talk about horseback riding, a story about horseback riding, but then in the middle of the story I talk about like child abuse. Okay, yeah, probably give like a bit of a warning in case some people don't want to listen to that shit. But if you're like literally like my least favorite thing is listening to like a true crime podcast and they'll be like, trigger warning, there's lots of violence in this next bit. And I'm like, no shit, it's a true crime podcast. I'm not coming on here to learn about fucking like daisies and flowers. Like, it drives me crazy. And again, I'm not opposed to all forms of trigger warnings. I just feel like we've gone way too far. No research on dating, ha ha ha. That's why the pickup community emerged. Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to do good data on dating, right? Because like anything that's going to control for extraneous factors isn't going to actually mimic the dating world very well at all. The Gottman style of research, again, doesn't mimic the dating world. He put them in like an apartment and like watched them for 24/7. Super creepy, but you know, got good research out of it. So like anything that I'm saying about dating is very much going to be like my philosophical thoughts and my personal opinions on things, because there really isn't much dating data out there. Yeah, probably just assume things are my opinion unless I explicitly like say that it's data. Maybe probably having like data up on screen is confusing though. Is there something more interesting that I can throw on for you guys to look at? That's probably also going to be confusing. Here you go. You can put this back up. I'll try to finish it today. Is it time? Should I change my TikTok to not so erudite? It's been K turnaround for a while, but I feel like it's not. It's time. It's time. We're going to do it right now. Changing the username. Let's go. Watch somebody who's taken it in like the 2 days that I've been streaming. That'd be so sad. Oh, it's good. Saved. Set username. Done. Got it. Right, TikTok has changed now. All my fans on TikTok are going to be like, what the fuck? Okay. I saw something out of a university in the UK adding content warning to Harry Potter books. Ugh. Exactly. Like, it's just like, okay, come on. Like, at some point, if we're walking on eggshells too much, all we're going to do is encourage and increase anxiety, not reduce it, right? Like, again, if somebody's taking a class on, like, Canadian history, they probably don't need a, like, especially if it's focusing around, like, my TikTok link is broken. It's probably because I literally just changed my TikTok name a minute ago, so my link probably doesn't work anymore. I'll have to update it everywhere. Sorry. It's now not so erudite, though, if you want to look me up on TikTok. I haven't posted for a couple of days. My poor viewers have been waiting for part 2 on is marriage a patriarchal system. You'll have to watch it on there to find out. Also, this is random, but I plan on doing my honors in 2 years. Cool. Congrats. Apparently I need stats as a subject. Yes. Absolutely. You should probably take a 100 and 200. I would encourage honestly taking like 2 advanced stats courses for your thesis. I took out like the 100 that's required, and then my honors program required a 200 level, and then I took another 300 level. And even then, still fucking hate stats sometimes. So, although recently somebody reached out to me who has a PhD in statistics. I don't know if they're watching right now, but I am really excited to pick their brain. I don't know if they realized what they did by reaching out to me, because now I'm going to just like constantly go to them and be like, hey friend, can you help me interpret this statistic? I'm excited. Because statistics, been doing it for years, still the bane of my existence. You guys can watch me. I guess I should pop off like this. Okay. Reminds me of the parental advisory warning CDs back in the day. Zappa got a parental advisory for an instrumental album. Yeah, it's so cringe. Like, it's just like, cringe, cringe, cringe. What is your take on the pickup community? Are you ready, kids? Okay. Pickup artists understand broadly what will attract women on an initial, like, first meeting, right? That is not a hot take. Sorry. Let me say that again. Pickup artists know how to make a good first impression with a woman. My problem is that pickup artist communities really encourage hypergamy and kind of body count Olympics, where they just try to have as much sex and pick up as much women as possible, which I do think fundamentally reduces women down to this kind of objective target to get victory over, not like a human being with complex emotions and feelings and thoughts. And I think in general, when we reduce sex to like such a rudimentary thing across the board, it's not great. I don't think it's good for our community. I don't think it's good for sexuality. I don't think it's good for men, and it's definitely not good for women. That's my broad take, but they're doing something right because women, they're successful, right? So there's something going on that's appealing to women. Do you think pickup artist stuff is effective? It seems to be. I guess that's what I would say. It seems to be pretty effective. The main women it's not going to work on is women who've been really like burnt by men like that, and so they're going to be very like dubious to that type of behavior. So for example, I'm actually a woman who pickup artist stuff really doesn't work well with me, just because I've like had so many negative interactions with like the highly charismatic men, and I'm just like a big disagreeable skeptic by nature. So yeah, in general, they're doing something that seems to work broadly, but it might not work for like the more complex women that some men are looking for, that are maybe like more thoughtful and stuff like that. What does your BF or husband do for a living? Do y'all have intellectual conversations all the time? All the time. He is very smart. He's in my Discord all the time, so if you want to chat to him and ask him how he went about pursuing women, he's very good with women. It's actually why I was initially very dubious of him, because he's very charismatic and smooth, and I was like, I know what fuckers like you are like, you know? Like, I was like, eh. And so he like definitely had to like pursue harder than I think he probably should have had. He had to work for like 6 months, and I was pretty hot or cold, the poor guy. So we have intellectual conversations all the time. He's very smart. He's very good at rhetoric, better than I am. And he is also a personal trainer, so big into fitness and health. So he's also in my Discord for like help like that. So if you like want to work on fitness and stuff like that, he's like got like 17 titles. He's a personal trainer, postural corrective specialist, I think is what it's called. He can train you in calisthenics, powerlifting, other muscle things, and he's very smart. He's a very, very good personal trainer. Yeah. He also plays League all the time, so that tells you a lot about him as well. What's your take on pornography? It's tricky. I think there's some evidence that like overusing pornography for men can cause like some serious sexual problems when they get into relations with like living women, like issues where they can't ejaculate without like pornographic visual stimulus. It sets really bad standards for like what sex should actually look like. Sometimes it sets really bad standards for consent, obviously. In general, I've almost never watched it. I find it really cringy, but I'm also like super low libido, low sex drive person, so that's probably part of it. Is that it's just like I'm like, these people are terrible actors, and then people are like, well, that's not the point of it. I'm like, yeah, but like it's so bad, and like, well, yeah, but like you're not watching it for the story that it's telling you. So in general, I think definitely porn can have definitely negative effects. But I don't think it's like just evil, right? Like drugs can have really negative effects. It can also have like neutral effects. So that's kind of my view on it. I think like it's complex. So your husband is a player of League. They're good at first impressions. Yeah, we need more follow through, healthy stuff now. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the plot. Mr. Girl used to be a personal trainer. Yeah, I actually think I really want to talk to him because I know he's got like weird feelings about mental health and psychology, which probably is worsened by Dr. K. But I want to talk to him a fair bit about like personal training and mental health because I think it's an area of mental health education that most psychologists don't talk about enough, which is like exercising is one of the best ways to release like tons of feel-good neurotransmitters. It's really fucking good for your brain. Like anyone who has a brain injury, if you're worried about Alzheimer's, it's like the best way to like prevent and reduce effects of it. So yeah. Summit 1 gram, I keep having to allow your takes. My bot doesn't like you. The plot. I watch it for the story, yeah. You're really invested in the characters and like their character development, you know. The guy first started out by being really objective towards women, but by the end he's got a complex understanding that the woman he's having sex with all the time both has physical needs but also emotional needs, and he cares about them, and the reason why he didn't care about them before is because mom didn't hug him enough. Just kidding. What do you do if your partner's libido is significantly different than yours? Talk about it. My partner has, I don't know if he wants me sharing this, I don't think he'll care. It's a much higher sex drive than I do, so we talk about it. I love my partner, so I want to like meet his needs. Even if I don't want it, there's lots of other things I'm willing to do. I don't really, like a lot of people, like you can't date somebody if their like sex drive is way different than yours. I think it differs for people. If you're willing to kind of talk about it and settle for like what the lower sex drive person is like willing to do, like obviously like as a lower sex drive, I'm just willing to do more than maybe I would personally want. But I kind of view it as like I really appreciate it when he does the dishes. He might really appreciate it when I do other stuff, you know? So yeah, it's just like if you love your partner, talk about things and figure out ways to like love on them and ways that are like meaningful to them. Another stream idea. Bring your husband on to teach and chat how to talk to girls. I plan to do that. I do that on my TikTok live sometimes. I just need to figure out my OBS streaming a little bit more. I need to figure out how to get the scenes properly switching over so I can pull people on Discord up and like get their camera on screen so you can see him. If anyone's wondering, Nick Magnet in the chat is my partner, so you can ask him. I've been reminded that I have to work out tomorrow. Good. We can all work out together. Do you think sex drive is dependent on the partner that respective person has? Probably not. I think sex drive seems to be pretty innate to each person. It's probably informed by lots of things. Holy shit, dogs. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, I would say probably not. Sexual desire for your partner is definitely influenced by like your actual like interactive relationships between each other. But right, so like if I don't feel safe and like if me and my partner are in a space where like I'm really hurt emotionally by him, and I would argue it's vice versa. Like men are actually like very similar to this in my broad opinion as well, which is like if you're really hurt by a person, upset, you're feeling really emotionally distant, there's probably a good chance that you're going to be less sexually inclined towards them, barring like certain types of kinks, I guess. But in general, I think like sex drive is probably more intrinsic. These are just my opinions, though, of course. Do you think it's easier to introduce a fetish in your relationship, like a foot fetish, even though that's pretty much PC these days? Do I think it's easier to introduce a foot fetish in your relationship versus like... What do you mean? Easier, was when you say easier, it implies like a comparison. Is it easier to introduce a foot fetish into a relationship where you're long-term stable and have communicated about sex? Definitely. Probably random strangers on the street are not going to be as into your fetish unless you get really lucky. Good questions. Self-report. I like what I like, says everyone. Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to sex and like long-term partners especially, there's just lots of space for communication. You should talk about what you want and what you like. And in general, I would say like partners that are good to each other are probably going to be willing to try things. Obviously, you can have no-goes. Right? And so if your partner has a big no-go and you have a big desire for something, that might be a deal breaker for sure. But I just think in general you should just talk about it, right? Like I'm overall like pretty open to trying lots of stuff, but like I think it's super fair to be like, hey, I'm not comfortable with like scat or like golden stuff, you know, like it's fine to have those lines. You just like have to talk about it. Like I think it's as simple as that. You just gotta talk about it as a couple. You just gotta talk about it. I also wanted to ask, what nickname do you want? Arrow or like Kyla? You can call me Kyla or Erudite. I think somebody called me Airy recently, like Erie. That's fine with me too. I'm pretty open. Just don't call me Natso, because it makes me sound like a clown. And then you're gonna remind me of my my hallucinogen, my THC hallucinations of the It Clown coming towards me. NSE? NSE makes me sound like I might be like some sort of like sports. Not so the fascist clown. Yeah, NSE makes me sound like a sports network a little bit. Golden stuff, and she's not talking about jewelry. Yeah. Something that's TOS is just say in Minecraft and you'll be safe. I feel like that's not true. Just say some like really like, you know, like I couldn't say like a racial slur and be like, racial slur in Minecraft. Like I feel like that's not gonna pass the TOS then. Your name makes me think of Aphrodite because that's how I keep writing it. Nice. Yeah, you can call me Kyla or whatever. I just think Kyla's not the like nicest name. Like I don't love it, but I like it's my name, so I'm not gonna be like, don't call me that. I think Erudite is also very pretty. Actually, my partner came up with it, so it's kind of like feminine, which is nice. It's girly, but it means learned scholar, which is why I put not so in front, because I felt like that makes me seem really pompous. If I'm like, I'm an erudite, and it's like, nah, bitch, you're just a normie, LARPing at being smart, you know? What do I do if I'm in low agreeableness, super high neuroticism, and low in conscientiousness? Probably work on making each of those less extreme. Probably work on emotional tolerance training, which is basically where you expose yourself to things that make you feel negative emotions in like increasing levels of like distress basically, and then you pair it with relaxation. So say like anxiety is one form of like negative emotion. You pick something that makes you a little bit anxious and you expose yourself and then do relaxation techniques and thought challenging till that thing is okay with you, and that's just increased your emotional tolerance a little bit. If you want to increase your conscientiousness, just clean up after yourself, like make it an actual like thing you have to do every day. I kind of like the saying like do not collect $200, do not like pass go, like don't even take your shoes off if you're like worried about like bringing the groceries and not putting away. Like don't even take your shoes off. I'm Canadian, so I take my shoes off. Like just walk in, set the groceries down, put them all away, and then take your shoes off so that you don't like lose your momentum to do stuff. So anytime you have like really extreme personality traits, that's fine, but in general, people will find you more agreeable and likable if you bring them towards the center overall. I want to kill all the landlords, but in Minecraft, and they won't ban you for promoting violence. I should get Minecraft then so I can do that. Clean your room, bucko. That's exactly what it is. Clean your room and then don't raise your children to be people you hate. Do you ever get in heated debates with conservatives? Yes. My family is pretty conservative. So, not like my brother. My brother's like gay. He's actually on Twitch too. He's actually mad because he's been on Twitch for way longer than me. But my parents are very conservative. They're very supportive. But yeah, we definitely get into like, I wouldn't say heated anymore, but we do get into debates. And like, I've been in like lots of church circles for a long time, so I used to always be like the chick in the church circle being like, yeah, but like, let's be honest, Paul was probably gay. Like, there's a reason he dislikes women so much, loved Barnabas, and like always talked about having a thorn in his side, you know, like, he was probably gay. Christians don't like that take. It's funny though. It's probably true too. Also, what do you think about Freud overall? For my first year in psych, we took like a full month of learning who Freud was. I'm surprised. Most schools don't even teach. What's my brother's Twitch? Good question. I think it's something like Twank, Tunk, Twunk, Tank, TTV, I think. I should find him and then raid him. Jesus is gay. Oh boy, sounds like a lot of debate around police. My dad is actually a policeman. So, fun times. Also autistic, so extra fun times. Freud overall. Okay, I find Freud he's really important for psychology because he's the first one to really bring awareness to the fact that there are like unconscious and private things happening within your mind that are important and they change your behavior. He's also one of the first ones to ever suggest the concept of neuroplasticity. He actually thought the brain was plastic at a neurological level as well, which it took us about 80 years to prove his theory. But it feels like he does a lot of projection in his theories. It's a lot of aggressive sexual stuff. But if you read his actual, like, if you ever read, like, transcripts of his therapy sessions, he's a pretty brilliant therapist. He had a lot of success of like dealing with like deeply psychosomatic symptoms and treating them effectively with his kind of self-created form of treatment, which is kind of crazy. Like he literally made up his own therapy treatment and like helped people who are having like seizures from like trauma. So I don't know. Yeah, bro's raid when done here. He can't complain anymore then. True. I'll have to find it though. Let me see if I can find it. I'm nervous to like try to look him up because it's such a intense name. Twank. Tunk. No, shoot. It's Twunk Tank. I should just look up his Discord. I think his Discord is... Yeah, that didn't come up. Let's see if he comes up on my Discord. Oh, I also forgot my husband is also a massage therapist, so yay for me. Okay, I found it. Tank Twunk TTV. Okay. I typoed it. Let's see if I can find it here. Which... Okay, hold on. Tank... Twunk. Ah! Shit. Okay, no. Let's try this instead. Is this it? Dang it! Shit. Shit. Let me just ask him. But if you're gonna go for him for like spicy political takes, he doesn't give nearly as many. Twink Hunk TTV? Is that? I don't think so. I don't think that's it. I'm pretty sure it's Tank Twunk. What do you mean with plastic? I mean neuroplastic. Neuroplastic is a concept of basically like your brain's capacity to change at a biological level. Freud on Oedipus complex is being proven correct every day on TikTok. Wait, but how does your dad feel then? Sure, since I'm sure the relations between police and people of color are different in Canada than the US. So relations between police and people of color in Canada is definitely more. We have Indigenous people that have kind of the most systematic and systemic oppression and kind of racism towards them. There's lots of really bad relationships between the police and Indigenous people. There seems to be a little bit less of kind of the racial profiling and kind of towards blacks, although I think probably depending, like Toronto, we start to see more of it because there's like just like a lot more people of color there. Potentially my husband knows. Don't even know your brother's Twitch handle. It's complex. I barely know my own Twitch handle, okay? I still have to, like, go to my own link tree to find myself sometimes. Tank Twunk? I think so. I think that's it. Wait, I thought you were Canadian. Why aren't you ending all your sentences with A? I'm unfollowing. You know what? Fair enough. Wonkin in the drunk. In Minecraft. It's Tank Twunk. Did you find it? You guys are genius. Yeah! But he's not live, is he? He's not live. Too bad. I'll raid him next time he's live. I don't know who I'm gonna raid, because I'm probably gonna pop off soon. I don't even know how to raid. Let's look that up first. Twitch, how to raid. Ooh, I'm so excited. What are we gonna scream when we go in there? I think you guys should scream something funny. I don't know what that would be. You could scream meth heads again, although that's like a DDG thing, so I don't want to steal that. We could scream trash goblins. How do raids work? Type raid, followed by the name of the channel you wish to raid. Aw, so those two people who raided me wrote my name in. That's so nice. Destiny and Mr. Girl are so nice. For example, to raid the Twitch presence channel. Okay, I'm probably going to raid Stardust. I feel like I'm going to raid Stardust. I like Stardust. She's very nice. Look at everyone screaming at me how to do it, and I'm just like slowly reading through. Do you know Nassim Taleb, the statistician? I read all of his criticisms of IQ and psychometrics, but I don't know enough statistics to conclude anything. No, but I am going to write him down. Where? On my agenda. I'm going to write him down, because that's really interesting. I would like to... Anything IQ and stuff like that and psychometrics, I like reading about because I'm a big nerd. I should show you guys my book. Get that boy out of bed and into life. True! Okay, look at this wonderful book I have. It's called Assessments That Work. It's a really old textbook, but it goes to like the basic ratings of like different instruments for like diagnosis and stuff like that. You can see I've underlined things, yeah? I've even read it. Not all of it, but I've read through some of it. Level of care determination. So it's pretty old, but I find a lot of like OG assessment psychology is actually pretty solid because people were actually more trained on statistics back then because they had to do it all by hand usually. But super interesting, especially even to just get like a historical understanding of like what people even thought. Like I've got adult depression versus depression in children. Like what did they think about it whenever this was written? I think the 80s. It's really cool. I like this book. Big nerd. How's Vancouver? I don't live in Vancouver. It's a beautiful city though. Expensive though. Expensive as shit. Jacobus, and a very good one. He's very critical of IQ and seems to make good arguments, but I have a baby brain for math, so a decent amount of what he says goes over my head. I'll check him out because I'm really like obviously pro IQ, anti. I don't think Destiny's on right now. Yeah, he's not online. Should we raid Stardust or Prime when I hop off? You guys can vote. Star, you want Star? I see one for Star. Trash Goblins Unite. Nice. You raid this magician I follow. Okay. Yeah. Tell you what, I'm probably going to head off for tonight, but I'm super grateful for all of you guys who came out, and make sure when you guys see Mr. Girl or Destiny that you thank him for me. I will also be thanking them. I could raid Prime K's as well. You guys can pick. star prime K, star prime Ks, star prime Ks, star 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 star. Okay, we're doing that. Okay, thank you so much for coming out tonight. I super appreciated having you guys. Watch me just fuck this shit up. Stardust. Okay. Ooh, okay, let's try. Does it work? I can't. I can't do it. I'm sorry, guys. It's not letting me. Raid now. Raid! Go!
This week because I'm just like, now we can at least timestamp when this stuff.
Alright. Thank you, guys.